Well, hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for the final time for this season. It is going to be the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League on its Porsche Cup racing action. Tonight, we will crown ourselves a champion, and who that will be decided in the dampest of conditions. Precipitation will strike the nation as we go racing to decide our national champion. The Nurburgring is the layout, and Reese, the drivers, have been presented with a tricky proposition for the final round of the series.
Oh, they certainly have. We are in virtual Germany at the Nurburgring, the Grand Prix circuit, playing host to this final round of what has been a scintillating esports tournament to crown one of NZ's best sim racers in the Porsche Cup cars. And as you can see, it is certainly German weather. It's very wet out there in practice, and from what we've seen on the weather forecast, it should stay wet for the duration of qualifying and potentially the heat. The feature, meanwhile, may very well be dry, but there's no predicting what's going to happen weather-wise, just as there's no way to predict how the on-track action will play out tonight. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and we saw that last time out with the endurance race. We've had a wonderful series, I think, thus far. Like, we've been challenged. Everything's been good thus far. The racing, the quality of the racing, the driving standards has just been on point, and it's been a challenge for everyone involved. It's not just been all anyone's way. It's been, you've got to go out there, you've got to earn your race victories, you've got to earn your spots on the grid. Qualifying has certainly been decided in Hugo Allen's favour, but tonight is moist, it's damp, and you've got to be on track at the right point in time. There's got to be a small window where the conditions are best. When that will be within the session, no one knows, and you've got to be on a flying lap when that comes.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know how the rain's going to pan out. The rain has only just left the circuit really in practice, so the track is going to be drying all the way through the end of the practice session and through the 15 minutes of qualifying to come. So we might be seeing the best laps being set on a drying track at the end of the session. And that's one of the great things about the iRacing weather system here. Those laps at the end of the session will be the fastest, and we're going to be seeing pretty much everyone out there trying to get their dry bit of racetrack to set their fastest times.
You've got to be out there. And remember, we've seen over the last couple of weeks that drivers have sort of been taking two bites at the cherry in terms of setting qualifying times. They've been going out hard earlier, trying to get some temperature into the tyres, and then they'll settle a little bit, cool the tyres off, and then have another crack again late. Has generally been the way that qualifying's been attacked thus far. But tonight, it's going to be try and keep the tires up at all times, and it's going to be governed, I think, by the amount of dampness, the amount of moisture that's actually on the circuit, more so than anything else. But in terms of racing and how it's been set up, how has the championship decided itself thus far? Well, it's been incredibly tight right the way up and down pit lane. We're coming into this one with not a lot separating anyone in terms of the championship standings, and that'll be a big key tonight. We're back over, though, to our original starting format. It's been endurance racing format last time out, and a lot on the cards, and a little bit different in terms of the racing format. Tonight we're back to that heat and feature.
Yeah, indeed we are. 13 laps for the first race, no compulsory pit stop in either race, but the top 12 in race 2 will be inverted on the grid from the results of race 1. So you finish 12th in race 1, you are starting on pole for race 2. You finish, you win the first race, and you'll be starting in the midfield solidly. But from what we've seen, the top drivers in this series don't have many issues working their way through the pack. It's going to be very entertaining.
Yeah, I think Nurburgring as well in terms of tracks. If you look at maybe GT3 racing, overtaking is quite difficult. Formula racing, certainly the open wheelers really like to overtake here. But Porsche Cups, bigger braking zones. They say the best racing formats tend to have extended braking zones and the ability to make mistakes. I think one of the biggest things we've seen from this series thus far is mistakes. The classic car, sure, there's definitely drivers with higher standards, there's definitely drivers with lower standards, but at the same time, they're challenging each other, and they're challenging each other to go beyond what the tyres are capable of. That generates a little bit of mistake, that generates a crisscross move, and we've seen phenomenal racing as a result, so I think any results are still on the cards, and I think one of the biggest things is finishing a championship at the Nurburgring means that a dive bomb on turn 1, on lap 1, could put one of our contenders in a bad spot for their final race results. Anything can happen turn 1, lap 1.
Yeah, exactly. We're about to see that coming through here into the first corner. See how tight it is. We'll be going into more detail about the track a bit later on in the track guide video. But yeah, Daniel Patterson demonstrating just how tight that first turn is. And there's no ABS or traction control in these cars, so you need to be careful when you get on the brakes for the first time not to lock them up, because you'll definitely cause some chaos if you miss your braking point further back in the field.
Let alone have a look at the gloss on the circuit as well, looking for that slick line, right? So they're taking a little bit of a stock of that. The conditions are changing, and the rubber line is not so much of an issue as it was maybe at the start of the session, but you know, it's not easy to sort of pick up where the best lane is to run at the moment. But and it's changing each and every lap race. It's gonna be one of those nights where and it could come from anywhere. It absolutely could come from anywhere. And the championship standings are incredibly tight as well. So we're right there and right amongst it in terms of who can possibly win this one. In terms of things though, before we can get there, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to say thank you for the final round of the championship. Means that we decide ourselves a champion, and that means that we also need to say thank you to our sponsors, right? We've got to absolutely sit down and thank them for everything that's been possible. We're going to start that off with a little bit of a celebration of Hyperfibre.
No! Oh, come on! I would have won if it hadn't been for the lag.
Now you'll need a better excuse. Hyper-fast reaction times, hyper-powerful performance, hyper-impressive capacity. Hyperfibre, the ultimate in internet.
Big shout out to our primary sponsor in Hyperfibre. They do provide the fastest internet available in New Zealand with up to 8 gigabytes per second upload and download. The bandwidth to ensure that you avoid lag and lagging out of racing service on a critical night where you decide yourself a championship. Certainly don't want that. Hyperfibre is the only solution that's going to prevent that from happening to you. So a big shout out to Hyperfibre, who've been with us right throughout the series and tonight's round sponsor as well.
Indeed, the Hyperfibre 185 here at the Nurburgring. You'll want to be Hyperfibre fast around this place because, my goodness, it is such an incredible circuit. We're going to take you through it now before we get things going here. Thanks to our safety car drivers for bringing the Aston Martin GT4 around this circuit. Down the start-finish straight. So quick. You got to get on the brakes for turn 1. Sometimes straight line that little kink on the way in. This is the slowest corner on the circuit. All the way down to minimum speed. Traction is so important. Also, mid-corner grip. This is the Mercedes Arena section, and a couple of medium speed left-handers where it's very easy to over-rotate the car. You want to try and compromise your line through that left-hander for this right, because that leads onto a short straight before you go plunging down the hill. Getting good straight line speed, incredibly important on the exit around this circuit. Diving down the hill and braking and turning at the same time. This is one of my favorite sequences of corners in all of motorsport. Medium speed, you got to make sure, once again, you get the best traction on the exit. A straight that's not really a straight on the way down to the southern hairpin here. And even then, it's a pretty sweeping and fast turn as far as hairpins go. And you can use all of the curb on the exit to try and get the best exit possible. On board through the Schumacher S. This is just about flat out in a lot of categories, but I think the Porsches might have to lift a little through here. And then building up the speed once again for the final runs onto the back stretch. Medium speed left, third gear, and sweeping back across the track. You want to try and nail the apex and get on the power as early as possible, because this is yet another straight where you need those extra few Ks an hour of straight line speed. A flat out right to take you on the way up to the NGK chicane. There's a few different configurations of this chicane that can be used, but here in NZ Esports Hyperfibre League, we're using the Grand Prix configuration. It's so tight, the curbs are brutal, and it'll be very easy to spin across those curbs. Then it's only a short run back into third gear, potentially second gear for the final corner, pit entry there on the right. So if you're damaged, that's where you'll want to go. And then out onto the start-finish straight to complete the lap at the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. Obviously, according to many racing fans, it's not a patch on the Nordschleife, which sits to the north of the circuit. But Scott, I think this is a perfectly serviceable racetrack, and it produces exciting racing in any category.
Yeah, it does, and like you mentioned, the multiple different iterations of the chicanes always means that, you know, you come here and you're not just racing on the same racetrack each and every time, which I love. You know, there's different configurations throughout the Grand Prix section. The arena section, really, you know, how wide do you run at turn 1? How much do you give yourself the approach to turn 2? There's a bunch of different ways around this track in terms of setting yourself up and the racing, right? The line that you use at turn 1 is not the same line that you're going to use at turn 2. You might look for a shallower entry at turn 1 to go for an overtaking move. That's going to shallow up your exit out of turn 1. You know, it's a lot of little switchbacks as well. So the racecraft that's on offer around here and the ability for drivers to make moves is quite high, and that's the big key.
Yeah, it certainly is. And a lot of the corners around here, I mean, this track dates from the early to mid 1980s. It was actually first built in 1983. A couple of configuration changes over the years, most notably the addition of that arena section from turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. But the rest of the track is pretty much the same as it was when it first opened. And so it has a lot of those design aspects that you would expect from a mid 80s racetrack. There's a lot of camber through the corners. The curbs are a little bit higher than you expect. It's a perfect recipe for good racing.
It is, yeah, and you know, the width of the track, that's one of the biggest keys, I think. I'm not much of a British track fan. I know there's a lot of people out there that'll say, oh, that's blasphemy, you know. And whilst those sorts of tracks are good for British touring car racing, yeah, not as, you know, the generations of cars have sort of got bigger over the years. I like these wide tracks, particularly with a lot of that switchback potential. You give me a track where I can switch back a driver and I can put my ability to outthink a driver on display. That's what I like, because and that's what I like about that first sort of sector here. You can force a driver to cover you. You can force a driver to block. But that presents you with more opportunities. That, to me, is what makes a great racetrack. It gives you good defensive and offensive options, and you can go side by side throughout the entire first sector and still be quick, right? You'll lose a little bit of time, but you know, there's so much ability to sort of carry that pace. I just love the racing around here. Championship standings. Tonight is the night where we're going to decide ourselves a champion. So we need to have a look at what does the points picture look like on our way in here. Antal Sabo has led the way since round 1, where he left with 1 point advantage after our first round all the way back when. Now, he's got a 2-point advantage. He came in last week with more than that. It got narrowed down during the endurance race, and Corey Lazarus is the driver that sits primed to take it to him. Is it possible for Ewan Baker and others to bring themselves in and be amongst this championship picture? Mathematically, yes it is. But that's going to rely on some disaster to both of the drivers that sit ahead of them, which means we are effectively looking at a heads-up battle between Antal Sabo and Corey Lazarus. And that means from us, from a mathematical perspective, it's quite easy. We're just going to zero in on those two guys. As soon as Lazarus and Sabo both end up in the wall, that's where people start pulling out calculators, Reese.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Antal Sabo and Corey Lazarus, what they have on their side is consistency. They've consistently been finishing well. Sabo, yeah, there was a bit of a blip last week at Phillip Island where he had an abnormally long pit stop and lost positions from that. But aside from that, both he and Lazarus have been the most consistent drivers of them all as we go down through the standings to find quite a few drivers who, you know, have had pretty bad luck, if I'm honest. Nico Cordier and Daniel Patterson in particular, they've shown some good pace, and unfortunately the results just haven't reflected that for them.
Yeah, it's rough. I mean, you know, the big point for those guys is, hey, we qualified for the dance. We made the main event, and there's quite a number of drivers that didn't manage to do so. So at the end of the day, they'll sit there and they'll go, it just hasn't worked out for me. But at the same time, yeah, you made it. at least you can be happy with that. That also presents a unique opportunity for those guys. They come into this last round and they can go, all right, I'm not in a championship contention. I can be a little bit more aggressive. I can try and do something a little bit funky and see if we can't get a major result. That's always a unique prospect as well.
Yeah, certainly it is, and with the addition of a potentially drying track in the first race at least, there's a fair chance that we'll be seeing drivers try to switch to slicks at some point. We're not quite sure though, as Patterson runs off at the hairpin there. It's one of the great things about the iRacing weather system. It is unpredictable. We don't know exactly how wet the track is out there for the drivers, and we'll have to ask them about that in between the races. How's the track feeling? How is it developing? What are you expecting for race 2? All of that sort of stuff. So let's see then how practice ends up here, because, man, there's been some really good performances in practice in terms of laps set. Xavier Simmons, he's had some very spectacular races. Patterson is sitting 3rd at the moment. We're seeing that Antel Sabo and Corey Lazarus, our main championship protagonists, they're only sitting in 5th and 7th. So we never know. Qualifying might throw up a couple of surprises.
Yeah, I have a look at Sabo, and he's in the pits at the moment, so I get the feeling he's gotten up, taken a walk away, and I think Corey Lazarus is about the same. So they're not running as the conditions have sort of been continually getting better. Xavier Simmons sits atop the timing sheets, and he's only just recently gone back to the pit lane, I believe, as well. So, is the track improving? Well, right now, we don't necessarily have a bunch of drivers going massively quick at the moment. It's only Daniel Patterson who's the first driver that's actually out there turning laps at the moment in terms of pace, and I would say it's still wet. I believe I'm still seeing wet tyres from just about everyone that's out there at the moment, so it's still definitely too damp to come in and put a slick on. Could that change? We've got about 45 seconds before we'll flick over to our qualifying session here tonight as well. But, anything can happen. The best way to clean off the track and move some of that water is to have cars out there and running on it. And qualifying is going to see the entire field out there. It could dry out very quickly, Reese.
Yeah, certainly could. We'll be seeing interesting dry lines forming with no more rain expected. What I want to point out is currently the sim classifies the track as lightly wet, but even more crucially, practice started with a clean track. No rubber buildup at all on the circuit at the start of practice, which is only half an hour ago. And other sessions will carry over from the previous session. So when the track does dry out, there isn't going to be much rubber on the tarmac. And that's going to mean the track's not quite as grippy as drivers will be expecting when it dries out. But checkered flag flies in practice. And now we get into MRP qualifying. Let's see who gets the MRP Pole Position Award, which is a $60 Menon Racing Products store voucher for the pole position winner.
Yeah, that's a big one. And the other thing that I can see going away in our chats as well is there is the NZ Esports Hyper League draw for a 1-year iRacing membership subscription. And that is another big prize that's worthwhile getting. Was wondering how much the conditions would change between the two sessions, but the big key is still a reasonable amount of spray. So I'm still feeling like the wet tire is going to be the preferred tire to start this session. It was enough spray for me to say, yep, I still want to cut tire on, and I get the feeling that's Daniel Patterson going down into turn 1, or at least it was one of those cars on the run out of turn 1 going, yep, I had the dry tire on, I need to get back to the lane and get that one switched for a wet.
Yeah, I think that was Mandela Pluck who did that. He jumped out of his pit box. I heard the wheels spin up a couple of times, and then he immediately reset back to the garage. Track not quite dry enough for slick tires, but now they're feeling out the conditions, seeing if there's been any improvement from practice. Of course, there is a tiny bit of a time skip in sim between practice and qualifying, so that means that water will have been sitting on the track for a little bit, but still enough of a line forming for drivers to really maximize their pace. It will be very interesting to see what kind of lines are being taken around the track and who ends up coming out with the fastest time. What kind of preparation have our championship protagonists done in the lead up to this race, and will they be right up the top where we expect them?
Another note, I've just seen Cameron Dance having a lot of issues pulling that car up. He's also on slicks, so he will have to get back to the lane as quickly as possible and get those exchanged for a set of wets. Antel Sabo also on slicks. That's a key one. So he's also made the mistake of leaving the lane with a pair of slicks on.
Yeah, it's not ideal there for Antal, and I'm looking at him and seeing that he is dropping like a stone down the queue. And there's the front end of the car's just not responding for him through the Schumacher S. So, yeah, he'll have to get that one back and bring on the wet treaded tyres. Clear some water. Make sure that you get that sort of softer treaded compound on, and you'll get the best grip in the wet conditions. You see that right there? That's what slick tyres on a wet track looks like.
It's just nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Look at how much he's cranking it. It's not turning.
He's going to try and put some heat through the rear tyres. That'll be a dive straight back to the lane, you feel. That is not what he wanted to see, though. That is, when you come into a round like this, it's a check all your boxes, right? Get in the sim, first thing. Make sure everything's set up. Make sure that you click through all of the different bits and pieces to make sure that you're ready to go when it all starts to happen. And step number 1, wrong tyre on. Always need to check at wet sessions. It's one of the things, I suppose. It's not been up until the last 6 months something that drivers have to account for. And Antel Sabo's already made the first mistake. First laps, though, probably about halfway through at this point in time. First drivers are on their way down to the Dunlop Care hairpin, the midpoint of the lap. So 15-minute qualifying session with a hard cut. That time will run out, time will expire, and that will be it. There'll be no completing the lap that you were on, unlike last week where there wasn't sufficient time to do that.
Yeah, indeed. Dylan Jordan, we're looking at the moment. He's a bit further back in the queue. Ewan Baker for Kiwi Sim Racing is the first of the cars that will come across the line to set a time. So let's follow him through the final sector here. We're not quite sure what the ultimate pace is going to be, but drivers were setting 2-minute 10 lap times at the very end of practice. So we're expecting them to be at least that fast in the first part of qualifying, and then we'll be taking a few tenths out of it as the track continues to dry. No rain is falling. Baker through the final corner, smooth out on the throttle. Make sure that you don't hit the curbs or the white lines too much because they get extra slippery in wet conditions. Across the line, Ewan Baker comes and it's a 2:10.9. That is the pace being set in the first part of qualifying.
And given that there's no temperature, no pressure in those tyres, that's a touch quicker than it was in the practice session for Ewan. So that says the track has improved, but improved marginally. That's on a cold tyre at the moment. Hugo Allen will jump to the top of the board with a 2:10.5. Now for Hugo, he's about a tenth and a half away from where he was a little bit earlier on. Ewan Baker behind the wheel with the VR on at the moment, trying to crank that wheel across, trying to find some speed. Lazarus has been reasonably quick on his opening lap. 8.72, jumps to 4th spot in terms of the running order. I can tell you Cameron Dance and Sabo have now gotten back to the lane. They have switched their tyres back over to the wet tyre. 10 minutes left now, just under in the qualifying session. The final qualifying session of the season for the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League. Who is going to be able to put their Porsche Cup car on pole? Who is going to be able to challenge for that championship? I want to hear it from our fans running along at home. Are you a Corey Lazarus fan? Are you an Antel Sabo fan? And let us know what your predictions are for what looks to be a wet start to tonight's racing action as well. Chaos, drama at turn 1? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows indeed. Hugo Allen at the moment consolidating well on his current top time in qualifying. And Hugo's certainly got plenty of great experience in the real world as well. Developed a motorsport career with zero karting experience. He wants to inspire more sim racers to indulge themselves and believe that it's possible to transfer from the sim to real life racing. He's certainly got some pedigree. In 2022, he was the rookie champion in the Toyota 86 New Zealand series, and he was part of the selection for the Porsche Carrera Cup Asia Talent Pool last year. So he's certainly got a lot of talent behind behind him, and every time we've talked to him, he speaks like a racer.
He certainly does, but I think he's pitching to the wrong crowd. Did you just say go outside? I'm good.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it is possible. I mean, you know, we're spending a lot of our time indoors, but a real world does exist out there, and sim racing can be a great stepping stone to all of that. Alan has not quite been able to get the extra lap on board that he wanted, a little bit slower on that run, but oh, actually, no, he's improved to a 2:10.2. Sorry about that. I was looking at the timing there and wondering, hang on a minute, as he just said a 2:11. Well, he's certainly putting it to work out there.
Yeah, Ewan Baker's improved as well, 2:10.5. Stefan McCartan's jumped a long way forward. Simmons has improved as well. Lazarus did improve, but he's the least improvement, I think, out of a number of drivers. The big one we've got to sort of keep an eye on at the moment is Cameron Dance, I think, is on his first flyer. And then Antal Sabo. There's currently a group of about 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers who have failed to get a valid lap time on the board at the moment. So there is a few drivers we're still waiting to sort of see where their pace sits around. And Antal Sabo's in the final chicane at the moment, had a big old wiggle under brakes. So tyres still coming up to temperature, and that's Cameron Dance as the other driver who's just got the wet tyres on. So he's now starting to look for a little bit more pace. I would say conventional racing lines, even without any rubber laid down at the moment, Reese, are still slippery but improving. The water is starting to come off those lines, and with the bulk of the field out there and turning laps at the moment, we've got about 24, 25 drivers in the session here tonight. That will move that water awfully quickly.
Yeah, certainly will. Sabo with a 2:10.6 and Dance with a 2:11.8 on their first laps. And remember, the improvement that we saw from Hugo Allen just a few moments ago took 3/10 out of his lap. So now that Dance and Sabo have sussed out the conditions, I think they'll be able to get a little more pace out of these cars. What I am seeing, the difference between Sabo and Dance is Antal, he's a little bit rougher with the car. He's being more aggressive on turn-in. He's not doing the sort of underdriving that you often see from drivers in wet conditions. And will that work out for him? We'll have to wait and see. You see those tiny little twitches as he comes out of the corners. As Stefan McCartan going to P2, 2:10.4. There's an improvement from Sam Sproul as well in the 6:06, making his way up to 11th.
I've just noticed something. Allen's in the lane. Hugo Allen's in the lane.
Yeah.
Whether or not he thinks that's the best you can do on a wet tyre, or his readings are that we're at a crossover point. I'm just going to keep an eye on this one because I think he might be looking to switch compounds at the moment. So this will be huge. The problem is if you wait another lap, I don't think you're going to have time to get temperature into these tyres to actually set a quicker lap. So if this works for Hugo Allen, he's timed this perfectly. Xavier Simmons is in. Dan Turner is also in the lane. So no, it's another set of wets. So just resetting the wets. They may have overheated. They may have taken the edge off the wet.
Yeah, potentially. That's one of the things you've got to be aware of on wet tyres. They are a softer compound than dry tyres, and so they overheat more quickly. A lot more energy being put into them over the tarmac. So, yeah, resetting the tyres maybe was only fueling up the car for a 3-lap run or so. But he'll have to make sure that he gets out there very quickly because a lap here takes well over 2 minutes. Speaking of 2 minutes, it's an 11.71 from Sabo. Was not able to improve on that lap. He remains in 4th. So this is going to be difficult for him as Simmons, a little bit slow on the exit of turn 1 there. It looks like the car in front of him had to back out at the exit of turn 1 there. That was Tyler Williams in car 240 that came through there. Simmons topping practice and still putting in a good run for himself, currently in 5th. I'm not too sure what's going on here. I think he's just letting drivers go so that he has a clear track for his next lap.
Well, interesting. Just noticing. So, oh wait, hang on. He's actually on slicks. Xavier Simmons is actually on slick tyres. So there was a few drivers we noticed in the lane. I can tell you the line is starting to dry. There is definitely.
You can see
the drivers. There's not actually a wet line anymore, so you're not trying to get away from where the rubber is at the moment because the quicker line is actually where that rubber would normally be because the track's dry there at the moment. So the problem is for Xavier, I don't think he's going to be able to get the tyre up to temperature. That's the issue.
Yeah, it doesn't look like... Oh, yeah, it's definitely not up to temp there. He goes straight on at the southern hairpin there. But yeah, you can see that there is a dry line starting to form. You see those bits where the track looks a little bit lighter where the cars are driving? That means there's less water there. So, you know, a couple of drivers gambling on slicks here, but I think the track's still too wet for them.
It is, yeah. The problem is they're not going to... What's going to happen is probably the lap after the session ends is going to be the crossover lap, I think. So the dry line's there. You just can't get the temperature in the tyre, and you need the temperature. What we've seen the last couple of weeks, and it's certainly very indicative of Porsche Cup cars, is that those first 2 laps is sort of bringing the tyre in, and then it's the 3rd lap. My word, Connor Brody is... lighting up those rear tires, so he is definitely trying to put some pressure in the rear tires. And another thing I'm just sort of thinking about is Sarbo's driving style. You noted it, Reese, and I sort of have, from what I've seen of him as well, I am wondering whether or not he's hurting the wet tire. It might work on the slick, but you need those crispy, chunky block edges on the wet tire to clear the water from underneath the car. I think he might be overdoing it on the tire.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Just being a bit too aggressive on turn-in, scrubbing the tires a little too much, and that will hurt your front-end performance. And you need front-end performance in conditions like this, even on a track that's where traction is so important as the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit. Well, we're entering the final 2 minutes of qualifying now. And basically anyone who's on a lap now, this is going to be their final campaign to try and improve their position for the race 1 grid. And all of this track drying talk has got me thinking, are there any drivers who will gamble starting on slicks for the first race? And will we see pit stops in the first race for drivers to take slick tyres if they started on wets?
Yeah, you're gonna see all 3 different strategies. 100% you will. Somebody that's at the back of the grid is going to start on the dry tire, because why not? There's going to be the guys up the front are going to be forced to stay on the wet tire, and somebody that's in the middle of the pack will start on the wet and leave it on, because again, what have you got to lose? Yeah. So you're going to see all 3 strategies for sure. The tricky part is, how much is it going to matter and how much is going to be effective at things. Right, less than a minute in terms of the session. So drivers now down in the first sector. These guys are done for qualifying. And there is a couple of them already there. So I'm seeing, I think Corey Lazarus has already set his final lap time. Xavier Simmons, by the way, abandoned those laps, came in on that dry tire. So he is definitely not going to go quicker for him. I think Lazarus has not come to the lane. I was just wondering whether or not there'd be somebody out there who might dive in the lane. And that might be the thing for Xavier Simmons as well. He might be just trying to do a little bit of research on what the conditions are like on a dry tire. So he's now got some inside information. You know, everybody else has left the wet tire on. He already knows exactly what that dry tire feels like right now. So that may change his thinking just a little bit, which will be important. Drivers coming to the line. I can see 21st at the moment, which is going to be about Corey Croson. Dan Patrick in the final sector was on their way to the line. I think he managed to get his final lap of qualifying in, did not manage to get a valid or representative lap time. Well, 4 rounds from 4 rounds. It's been the driver of the number 17 car who has managed to put it on pole. The rain came down and that did not dampen Hugo Allen's spirits whatsoever. He will take all 4 pole positions. How's that for consistency?
Yeah, fantastic job from Hugo Allen. He actually improved in the final 30 seconds or so of the session and setting a 2:10.1 at his very fastest. So once again, he's going to take home a $60 Menon Racing Products store voucher. Thanks to MRP for your support of qualifying. And there's a few drivers jumping out to me here. You know, Tyler Williams down in 15th there. He made a massive improvement at the end of the session. He was outside the top 20. And in the final few moments, he crossed the line to improve there to get 1.7 seconds off the front. And going further on down, the likes of Dan Patrick, Hayden Kirk, you'd probably expect them to be a little further up than that. I don't know if the wet conditions are quite to their liking today.
Yeah, that is qualifying and it has been run and done. Ladies and gentlemen, taking his 4th pole position from 4 rounds, Hugo Allen. Tricky conditions here tonight to take another Mannon Racing Products pole position, mate, but you came back in for a second set of wets, didn't get the opportunity to get them up to temperature, up to pressure. You did set a lap late on that did improve slightly, mate, but that was probably the trickiest qualifying session of the season.
For sure, that was. I was kind of going into it a little bit blind as well. So yeah, it's pretty cool to I've never really driven in the wet in iRacing yet that much. So yeah, and I was a little bit short on practice as well. So it's nice to get a pole. Just got to drive around, feel the grip. But I think for sure putting the tires on at the end probably gave me a little bit of an edge, because I thought, you know, I probably got to the end of my 3rd push lap and just decided that the tires were getting cooked because there's not enough standing water. So yeah. I don't think it's quite ready for the dries yet, but it looks like the track's still a little bit wet, so we'll see what it's like for the race.
I think that's one of the trickier things coming through the end of this session is what strategy you go on. And we're going to have quite a divergent strategy set, I think, here. You're obviously no longer representatively in the championship fight, so are you just going to get aggressive with the strategy, try and go for a race win? Are you going to play it a little bit both ways? What's the call here?
Yeah, hey, look, at the end of the day, Antel and I are teammates, and I want to help. I want to help him win the championship. So, that for me, that's the plan. If I can help him in any way to do that, then I will. But at the same time, I still want to score my own points and still get 3rd in the championship. I think it's probably the most that I can ask for from the last round. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think as I say, I want to help Antel win the championship.
Nurburgring, love it or hate it? What's the generic thoughts around the GP layout?
I quite like it. I mean, I as I said last week, I've never really driven here that much. Haven't really done much practice either this week, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. But it's a bit different, and you know, it's got a bit of everything, so it's pretty cool. It would have been cooler on the big track.
Unfortunately, that we would get like 2 laps in, but hey, this way we at least get some more sprint style racing, mate. Congratulations on another Mannon Racing Products pole position. Anyone you'd like to thank before the start of this one?
For sure. Obviously the series, for setting up the series. I think it's been a really good series to be a part of, and really well organized and whatnot. You guys do a good job in the broadcast as well. But yeah, MRP for helping me out, getting me into the series, and also Wayne from NZ Simulation for getting me into the series as well. So yeah, I couldn't be happier.
Mate, congratulations on the pole position. Best of luck, and we'll let you get settled for a race start.
Thank you, mate.
I think that sort of gives us a really, really good summary, Reese, into what his mindset is heading into this race as well. The eyes are forward, but he is all about supporting his teammate. Hugo Allen is going to take another pole position. Stefan McCartan is going to be starting on the front row, found some speed in the wet conditions. Antel Sabo managed to get the laps together and starts on row number 2. He was only a couple hundredths back from the front row. Ewan Baker will start alongside of him. Xavier Simmons and Corey Lazarus will start on row number 3. Lazarus has got some work to do if he's going to find his way past Sabo. Russell Pepperell from Connor Brody are going to round out your top 8. Dylan Jordan and Daniel Patterson, row number 5. Samuel Sproul and Nico Cordier are going to be off of row number 6. First cars outside your 10. Rob Henry, James Jordan from Tyler Williams and Cameron Dance takes us all the way back through 16th spot. Taylor Mitchell and Luke Bradley are going to be 17th and 18th. Top 20 rounded out by Mandela Pluck and Corey Croson. Dan Patrick and Hayden Kirk outside of your 20. Dan Turner and Billy Rowley. Brendan Partridge is going to round out our field here tonight, ladies and gents. And that is the grid for the grand finale, the sprint race to start us off tonight as we get set to go racing for New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League, and I've just seen Hugo Allen might have just had an iRacing crash.
Oh no.
Oh, he's back. He's back. We're good.
Ooh. Okay. That was a little bit of a heart attack there for Hugo Allen, you know, wanting to play the part here to help Antal Sabo get to victory. But yeah, he'll start this one from pole for sure. Just a few minutes remaining, a few seconds remaining on the timer before we get things started here, Scott. Got to remember, Corey Lazarus starting in 6th place. He's got friends all through the field. The Blackout OPR crew will be wanting to assist him as best they can. It will be a battle of the teams as we get ready to go.
Billy Rally, I'm seeing a number of drivers on slick tyres. We're right on the crossover marker. The green flag's in the air. The final round of the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League. The run down to turn number 1. Sabo got a good getaway. He's chasing his teammate. McCartan's going to try and spoil the party and get narrowed down at turn 1. White lines, and is that Lazarus trying to go around the outside? He went deep, but he certainly had to go at turn 1. McCartan's lost the rear as he goes through turn 1. Lazarus has gained a couple spots. Sabo's gained a couple more. They're all going to try and get through turn 1. Ewan Baker's still trying to hold up Corey Lazarus. Lazarus will have a crack at him down the inside, looking for some stones to get some bite, and finally cuts his way through past Ewan Baker. Step number 1 out of the way. He is neck and neck now with Antal Sabo. There's some work to do to close down on the driver of the 92, but the championship contenders sit 2 and 3 on the road.
That was a great execution of the first few corners by Corey Lazarus. Unfortunately for Stefan McCartan, starting on the front row, looks like he was on slicks too, and he spun out of turn 1. So unfortunately, he's going to have to come in and get those changed to wets if he wants to preserve some pace. Or now that he's down at the back, does he just stick it out on the dries and wait for the track to dry out? If it does, we'll have to wait and see on that. For now, though, everyone's close together behind our top 3. Ewan Baker holding off one heck of a pack here. Dylan Jordan, Xavier Simmons, Russell Pepperell and Daniel Patterson all chasing him down.
Connor Brody is the first car on slicks, and he has slid all the way back to 20th spot, spinning tyres as they come off of the hairpin. Now it's Brody from Sproul, from Williams, from Mitchell. Those are all the drivers that are on the slick tyre, and they are just crawling around. They are taking a huge amount of pain right now, but that track is drying. The sun has peeked out from behind the clouds. The track is going to dry. There's a huge moment down at the first of the chicanes as well. Somebody just about, I think it might have been Hayden Kirk or Dan Turner, just about slid across. Baker's dropped back to 4th spot. How long do these guys wait? How long do they wait before they cut across to the slick? And for Ewan Baker, if he's fallen off the back end of these guys, does he just have a crack and go early? See if he can't steal a race win. Someone's going to cut across the shame. Was that Jordan? I think it might have been Dylan Jordan.
Yeah.
It was.
It was indeed, and he'll have to serve an iRacing slowdown there and let Xavier Simmons by. Simmons on the outside, which is the best line usually in wet conditions. When the track starts to dry out and you're still on wet tyres, you want to be searching for those wetter, cooler parts of the track to preserve some grip in your tyres. But the fight's going to continue here for Jordan. He's going to face off against Russell Pepperell on the way into turn 1. Has to give him room on the inside. Does Pepperell have the traction? Oh, he does, but so does Jordan. He's going to stick it up the inside for the arena.
Well, to give you some sort of understanding of where the guys that are on the slicks are, Connor Brody was in 8th, now sits 20th. He's the lead driver on slicks. He's 5 seconds behind the wet drivers. 5 seconds behind them. And he is struggling with traction. He is now 6 seconds behind. He's a second and a half. There is no grip on the dry tyres at the moment. So it's at least going to be probably another 2 to 3 laps minimum before these guys even think of putting a slick tyre on.
Yeah, indeed. Slicks just weren't the option at the start of this race. Sabo is pressuring Hugo Allen here for the lead, and Hugo will want to grab a race win. Despite what he said to us in the pole position interview, he's a racer at heart. He wants to win, but he has to balance that with helping out Antal Sabo here versus Corey Lazarus. It is only a short race. Comparatively, but you can see that Lazarus is staying well in touch. And if you're Hugo Allen and you want to help your teammate, do you let him go here if he's clearly faster than you? Because if you hold him up, Lazarus is going to have a crack.
Well, the other thing is, think about the pit. I think we're going to have a crossover. I absolutely feel like this race is going to have a crossover period in it. I just don't know when that's going to be. And we've got to keep an eye on where those drivers on the slicks. So Sproul was starting to find some time at the back end of the field. Have a look at these guys battling away. Xavier Simmons will get the wipers on as he tries to get down the inside of Ewan Baker. He's going to be deep. He's on the preferred braking line on the way into the chicane. Manages to pick that one up. Slots himself up into 4th place at the moment. I can tell you the guys on the slicks are still struggling to get away. Right now, though, they might be starting to stabilize. They're starting to build some temperature in those tires, by the way, Reese. And they're less than a pit stop from the back end of the pack right now, but it is next 2 or 3 laps. If that pace doesn't come to that tyre, they're in trouble.
Yeah, indeed. There's been a big change in the battle for second. Meanwhile, it looks like Antal Sabo overshot the chicane and had to take a slowdown. Lazarus passed him in the final corners, but he's run a little deep at turn 1, and now they're side by side in the arena. This is the battle for the championship you're looking at right now.
I just wonder, does Hugo Allen dive to the lane now and start giving Sabo information?
Yeah.
Because that'll just tell him the crossover. They don't want to wait. They don't want to wait until it's close. They want to get him on slicks early, I think. But at the moment, Allen's going to run away at the front end of town. Lazarus has got the spot. And they run down into turn number 6 once again. Lap number 3 of 13 for the heat racing format. An invert to come. Top 12 are going to get flipped on their head. And who's going to finish inside that 12 at the moment? It's James Jordan. I tell you what, there's a big old battle packer from running from about 9th spot back to about 12th spot at the moment. Pepperell at the head of this little queue. At the tail end of that last car in the shop, that's 12th spot. So this will decide who starts on pole for the feature right now.
Yeah, James Jordan currently occupying that coveted 12th position as he tries his best to chase down this pack up ahead. His next target is going to be Luke Bradley, who's gone in quite aggressively into the Schumacher S, and he's got a lot of pace there versus Nico Cordier, who seems to be taking it a bit too easy in this section of the circuit. Could be seeing a pass from these two in just a few moments' time if everything goes to plan. But for now, the sun is out, the track is drying, and yeah, we're just waiting for that crossover point. But looking at the spray, I feel like the track is still too wet for slicks at this point in time. But yeah, give it another few laps and we might just see it.
So to give you guys some context, Stefan McCartney was Tyler Williams actually was the quickest of the slick tyre runners on that most recent lap. Ran a 2:26.5 was his most recent lap time. Race leader 2:11.1, so 15 seconds slower. Is the difference at the moment. So in 2 laps, he's lost a pit stop. So they're already at that point whereby that gamble is not paid off, which means the best thing they can do right now is switch back to the wets and they'll make some time back up. But they're going to have to come for 2 stops if they do. Right back up at the pointy end of things, though. Who is going to get brave? Corey Lazarus got brave, went and nicked that spot back from Antal Sabo. Is he able to hang on to it? Is Sabo sitting there and trying to conserve? And we've got 10 laps from the start of this one. Will we hit the crossover period within that next 10 laps? We sit, we watch, and it's bated breath. Think about how hard these drivers are white-knuckling the wheel at the moment, Reese, because the Porsche Cup car, there's no driver aids to speak of. You've got to be careful babying that throttle, babying the steering inputs.
Yeah, Luke Bradley with a lot of counter steer there on the exit, and Nico Cordier is probably having some similar issues as well. The Porsche Cup car is basically an overpowered Volkswagen Beetle in terms of its chassis configuration. Flat 6 engine slung over the rear axle. There's a lot of rearward weight bias in this car, which means when you lose that rear end, it can act like a pendulum if you let it swing out too far. It's just another thing the drivers have to tackle in these wet conditions. They tend to understeer on throttle, and the issue on entry is you want to try and shift as much weight onto the fronts as possible, but you got to be ginger on the brakes in wet conditions. The brakes will lock up a lot more easily.
Yeah, it's nearly like you're just barely touching them sometimes as the way comes in. You certainly got to try and trail brake. You'll add a lot more rearward bias to try and get things back underneath you. Biggest benefit though of having that rearward engine placement. Well, where do you want all the weight when you're trying to get the throttle down? Over the rear, particularly in the wet conditions. So a little bit better traction than some of the other cars, certainly for sure. In the meantime, Sabo's made some mistakes through the middle sector. Russell Pepperell looking in the rear view mirror, trying to decipher through the spray where the move is going to come. And not quite able to get that one done. Still fighting away at the moment with Rob Henry. Does get to the inside as they come off the chicane. He's going to be on the rubbered line as they shoot down into the final corner. Does he manage to pull the car up? He does. Who's going to get the traction out of the final corner? Will this be neck and neck as they run down the start-finish straight? New fastest lap for race leader Hugo Allen as the times dip into the 2-minute 10s. Who's looking after their tyres? And drivers already searching to try and cool those tyres off with that water all the way on the inside of the main straight.
Yeah, indeed. Not much of a move back there from Rob Henry on Russell Pepperell. Rob Henry's looking for a good result here as, oh, that's a big slide from Russell Pepperell. The KSR drivers have certainly had varying fortunes in the races so far. I feel like Rob Henry is one of the drivers who we've expected to be in and around the top 10, but due to various issues he's suffered, incidents with other cars, etc., he hasn't quite been able to back up his pace. You can see as well on the exit here, the drivers are trying to extend the exit as much as they can, but they're running over those white lines on the exit, and the white lines are so slippery in these wet conditions.
And the other thing I was thinking of is the white line, the pit lane exit line on the run down to turn number 1 as well. Very, very tricky, worthwhile keeping an eye on. Sabo's making mistakes at the moment, just trying to track down Corey Lazarus. Can he do it? Is Lazarus going to take a slight advantage heading into the final race of the season? Reverse that top 12. Who knows what can happen? And have a look at the brightness now around the circuit as well. That sun is coming out more and more and more. What are the lap times going to be? I reckon we've got to get down to about maybe a 209, 208 range before we potentially cross over to that slick. So we're getting closer with a 2:10.7 from our race leader in the most recent time by. They're still crawling all over the place on that wet tyre. You can just see it, conditions a lot brighter. In the meantime though, New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League, we've got a 1-year iRacing membership to give away to all of our fans. What do you need to do to get involved in that one? Like, follow and subscribe to NZ Sim Racing TV. Like, follow and to Chorus NZ and NZ Esports. Fill out your entry form over at the link which we provided in all of our chats across our social medias. Entries close midnight on the 13th of October. You can earn yourself a 1-year membership to iRacing, and that is no insignificant prize, by the way, as well. That'll get you racing for at least the next 12 months. Could one of our fans be joining the New Zealand Hyperfibre Esports League for season number 2?
Yeah, that is a big possibility there. So, yeah, URL was up there on the screen. It's in our broadcast chats as well. Make sure to copy it down, go to the link, fill in the form, and you'll get in the running to win a year of iRacing for free. Fantastic prize here. Big thanks to Chorus Hyperfibre and everyone involved at NZ Esports for putting all of that together, as well as this series. You know, however this turns out, it has been a fantastic 4 weeks for us up here in the commentary booth, Scott. The racing has been fantastic. There's been just enough drama to keep things spicy. We like a little bit of heat in the back of the throat, so to speak. And look at the heat starting to come out here for Daniel Patterson, who now has big pressure from Russell Pepperell and Rob Henry.
This is one of those drivers that had a few issues in the early stages of qualifying as well. But he's managed to lock himself back in, hold down. One of the biggest benefits as well, if you're a Chorus Hyperfibre Esports customer, you win yourself an iRacing subscription, you'll already be Hyperfibre fast. So that's worth at least a full second in terms of getting yourself up to speed, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Daniel Patterson, man, he's certainly got some excellent pace on board here in these wet conditions. He's looking good for a top 10 finish at the moment. Just needs to find a little bit more. Maybe he's been working the tires a little too hard while the track's been super wet. Now that it's drying out, potentially the tires are overheating. I can see that Pepperell and Henry, they're really starting to pressure him here. And in fact, Pepperell was ahead of Patterson across the line last lap. So Patterson's continuing to fight with these guys a little bit deep in the chicane, but that doesn't give Pepperell much of any advantage. He'll have to wait for the traction out of the final corner to make his move.
And have a look at, Pepperell searching for that wider entry line into the final corner, trying to take some grip, and the car just wiggles on power right the way through. Made up a bunch of time in that final sector. He's going to get some draft support, but the other problem is he's going to have a bunch of spray when they get down here to turn number 1. Does he show the headlights? He doesn't. He's a touch later on the brakes than Pepperell on the run of turn number 1. Pepperell gets a little bit understeery when they get to the apex of 1. He's going to be offline, has to cut hard back to the right-hand side. Does that prevent... Sorry, Patterson was offline. Does that present Pepperell with an opportunity? Not quite. Rob Henry's going to close up on these guys as well as they continue to duke it out at the moment. And our slick tyre runners, probably worthwhile having a check-in with them. I can tell you that Stefan McCartan last time by ran a 2:21.162, so they're still 10 seconds off the pace, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, it looks like Billy Rowley is the first one to throw up the white flag and switch to slicks. He's just come into the lane to get those tyres changed. So let's see what fortune that brings him towards the end. They lost the pit stop delta in the first few laps of the race. So I don't know if Rowley's going to be able to gain anything back on the other wet tyre runners. Taylor Mitchell, meanwhile, he came into the pits a few laps ago and he has not come out since. Hopefully we see him again in race 2. Meanwhile, Cameron Dance making his way past Dan Patrick there to get back up into 14th place. Cameron Dance starting in 16th place, and he's certainly starting to work things out here as the track continues to dry out. His next target's going to be Mandela Pluck, who is one of the drivers that has gained quite a bit in this race. He's up 6 positions to 13th spot. Most positions gained in the field so far, it seems, was Dan Patrick until Cameron Dance and Mandela Pluck made their way past him.
A little bit of pace as well from Cameron Dance at the moment. Not to the front of the field, but certainly a few drivers in and around him at the moment. Mandela Pluck is one of those. So accuracy through that chicane. Hugo Allen improves his fastest up the race, but the time is just not improving enough. The track's just not drying at all.
Yeah, this is curious. I mean, we came into this thinking that there would be a crossover point, but we're more than halfway through the race now, and it doesn't look like the track conditions have improved at all. So, if anything, we might see... Oh, hello. There's Pepperell getting by Patterson at turn 1.
Yeah, and they're going to fight back for Pepperell. Gets a little bit of a nudge from Patterson, a little bit of a hurry up in the middle at 2. And Spicy, Rob Henry's going to try and buy into that one. He's just about into the back now of Patterson, giving him a touch up and a hurry along. This, of course, is also going to include the battle for pole position for race number 2. James Jordan's at the back end of this pack. Nico Cordier and Luke Bradley, the other members of the battle pack at the moment. Bradley's starting to get back onto Bradley. You can just see they're all just crawling all over the track, just looking for any advantage, looking to try and get alongside. The grippy section of the track sort of narrows at the moment because there's one line that's been dried out. The rest of the track's still incredibly damp.
Yeah, indeed. Oh, Rob Henry a little bit deep there. You could see the understeer, but he manages to make a nice V-shape out of the corner there, and will end up not losing all that much out of it. But have a look at Patterson up ahead. He had a much more aggressive entry into Schumacher S, but he's all over the curb on the exit. No grip out there, mate. Get back on the racing line. And for now, Pepperell looks safe, but you can see that Rob Henry, he's starting to push a little more. He can see that Patterson's in trouble and he wants to get past, but I think, you know, when you're in this position, you need to balance that. You see that? A little hand-to-heart moment there. A couple of scares on that lap for Rob Henry as he might be pushing a little too hard.
Well, I think he's starting to put too much pressure on those rear tyres. He's going to have more and more and more of those. So I think the biggest thing right now is not necessarily pushing hard, but rather balancing it, bringing it back. And the difficult part for these guys at the moment as well is the conditions are changing constantly. Corey Lazarus' conditions are changing right now, in fact, because Antal Sabo is going to go toe-to-toe with him on the run at turn number 1. He touches the white lines on the run down into turn number 1. Is that going to be a touch deep from Lazarus? Protects the line. The narrow approach to turn number 1. Now he's going to be narrow at turn 2 as well. Sabo's going to tip it in from very, very wide, but the grippy line was back towards the inside. Looks for the drive off of turn number 2. Does get the drive off of turn number 2. Not enough of a drive. Nearly gets into the back of Corey Lazarus. Lazarus will hang on. Now he's offline as they get across down through turn 4. Corner Brody's going to step aside and get out of the way of this one as the lap traffic. Job done for him. Now Lazarus is coming back, fades back towards the inside. The defense is flawless from Lazarus. And with 5 laps left in this race, becomes 4.5. Antal Sabo wants to go the long way round, and he's going to make contact. They're both going to run wide.
Oh, okay. Corey Lazarus being mega defensive there. It looked like Sabo, he was trying to go for the cooler piece of racetrack around the outside there, but Lazarus with a bit too much understeer there, just drifted out on the exit. A little bit of overlap, but not quite enough for the move to be made. So a little bit of drama there between our championship contenders. I'm sure they'll have a laugh about it when all of this is over, but it is starting to get intense up there.
Yeah, and Xavier Simmons just bought into that battle just a little bit. He's lost it now, but he's coming back at these guys. Connor Brody's the next car that he's just gone through on. So lap traffic there, and Ewan Baker now slots back into 5th spot. So Simmons is starting to come back towards these guys. If they continue to fight, well, Xavier Simmons might just have a crack at the pair of them.
Yeah, indeed. Simmons has been nice and consistent over the course of this race, already gaining 1 position off the start thanks to the unfortunate spin for Stefan McCartan at turn 1. And he's just been minding his own business ever since then. That little bit of back and forth between our championship contenders is going to have lost them quite a bit on this lap. I'll be very curious to see what the lap times are once they cross the line. Out of the final corner for Lazarus, and this lap for him is going to be a 2-minute 12.4 and a 2-minute 13.8 for Antal Sabo. Meanwhile, Xavier Simmons a 2:11.5. That's a bit closer to the pace that we're expecting. Still not a patch on what Hugo Allen's setting up at the front.
Now, just going back to have a look at our slick tyre runners, Stefan McCartan just ran a 2:17.7. So the pace is starting to come now. And the problem being, I don't think there's going to be enough pace and enough time to switch to a set of slicks and drive past these guys. You might just cross over on the final lap. So now everyone's committed to the wet tyre, I think. And at the moment, these guys are going toe-to-toe. Rob Henry just about making contact with Dan Patterson once again. They chase each other down through turn number 3. They flick back at 4. Who's going to carry it out and over the curbs? Who's going to take the risk and touch a little bit of the AstroTurf? A few of the guys will touch it, but the track continues to dry, and I reckon we'll be on slicks to maybe start the feature race a little bit later on here tonight, but we're so close to that crossover period right now, and everyone's scrambling. Who's still got some nice thick edges to the blocks of their wet tyre? That's the big difference right now.
It is, and a couple of big differences will be made in this pack as Rob Henry again tries his best to make up time at the southern portion of the circuit. This battle, which stretches from 8th to 12th, battle for race 2 pole, of course, currently occupied by James Jordan. Don't forget that Cameron Dance, Mandela Pluck, and Dan Patrick, they're another some 6 seconds back from this pack. So I think what we need to think about is if there's an incident in this pack, if a couple of cars go off, that is a free kick for the likes of Dance, Pluck, and Patrick to have a go at race 2 pole themselves.
In the meantime, take a look at this just up ahead as bird's eye view from Rob Henry runs a little bit wide. Patterson, they had to go at each other. Patterson still trying to get down there. I thought for a moment, have a look at Patterson, cuts the chicane, cannot get that car pulled up. Hugo Allen now dips into the nines. Reese, I think we're there. I think we're just about to hit the crossover point. Who dives to the lane? I don't think we're going to see anyone.
Yeah, I think this late in the race, it's just not worth it. The battle is ebbing and flowing. The concertina effect from Patterson, running deep at the chicane, has brought Luke Bradley right into the clutches of Nico Cordier and Rob Henry. And there's a bit of contact there. Cordier gets into the back of Bradley, and they managed to recover it amazingly. How is that not a parking lot down at turn 1?
Yeah, I was waiting for the rear end of Porsche to just let go when they were right on the limit down there. Bradley has somehow managed to crawl that car away. The other side of this coin now, Reese, is okay, we're not going to pit for slicks. Well, that means you've got to look after the wet tyre. That means you're going to be on this side of the end of the race. That means we're going to be seeing guys that are no longer on the best tyre for the condition. And that is going to dramatically alter the tail end of this race. And Sabo, by the way, has caught back up to Lazarus. They're going to duke it out on track.
They are exactly what we want to see. Meanwhile, Cameron Dance and Mandela Pluck came together at turn 2, unfortunately. Sent Dance off into the runoff area, and he's rejoined back in 16th place. So some poor luck there for Cameron Dance on his run up through the field. But we'll keep an eye here on the battle for second. Antal Sabo has also dipped into the 2-minute 9-second bracket. He was the fastest car on track last lap. Corey Lazarus running some 7/10 slower than him on the previous lap. I don't know if Lazarus is going to have enough in him to fight against Sabo, but we've seen both at Hockenheim and earlier on in this race, if you're behind Corey Lazarus, you're going to have a tough time getting by him.
Yeah, and we're going to be 2 more laps left to run when they get to the start-finish line. Lazarus bobbles over the first part of the chicane. Sabo tries to get the drive out of the chicane. Tries to cut down to the inside. Shadows shows the nose. That hole is going to disappear. They're both going to run a touch wide at the apex of the final corner. Who is going to be able to get the drive? Lazarus is going to hang on for a little while longer, but he clambered all over the curbs. And that Porsche is becoming wider and wider and wider by the corner.
Yeah, indeed. Both of them searching for a little more cool track there. You could see the dry line forming massively. Down the stop finish straight. Oh, he loses the rear end, and Sabo almost gets by, but Lazarus was able to lock the brakes, recover the car, and get back going. Has he drifted a bit too wide here? Is the door open for Sabo on the inside? No, he's not going to take it.
No, he's just about lost it. So we're talking about the tyres, and Lazarus is now the guy that's on Struggle Street. Destination Nurburgring as they try and crawl their way out of the arena section. Once again, Lazarus is going to cover the inside. If he can go the long way round, though, here Sabo becomes the inside of the next corner. Lazarus is able to just keep the nose ahead. Wiggle as they get down under brakes on a drying track from the Nurburgring GP. 1.5 laps left to go from the sprint race. Your championship contenders are going toe-to-toe. It's not going to be for a race win, but oh boy, I don't care about that. This is the championship decided on the road, the way we like it.
Absolutely. Fantastic driving from the both of them there. That's exactly what I want to see as a spectator out of a battle. You want them to not give an inch to each other, but you want it to remain clean and respectful. And that's exactly what we've seen here. Lazarus defensive again here, coming into the next set of corners. He's narrow. He will drift wide. Just touch the white line and the curb. Same for Sabo. Who gets the best exit here? Yeah, oversteer on the entry there. He almost transitions it into a good run down the straight, but it's not quite enough.
Well, we're going to be 1 more lap left to run. The white flag, when they get back to the start-finish line, is going to be in the air. We're going to have a feature race to decide it just after this. And then Sabo fires it to the inside of the chicane. Does make contact. They lean on each other. How good is Porsche Cup racing? You can trade paint. You can bang panels. You can bang doors. And they both come out the other side. Sabo sends it in deep from the wide line. He cannot get the traction. And it's going to be Lazarus who's going to lead us back. 1 more lap left to run, and then a feature race to decide this one. Hugo Allen's disappearing into the sunset. No one has looked at Hugo Allen in the last 10 minutes.
If you can see the grin I have on my face right now, man, this is fantastic racing. And we still have a whole circuit of this track to go. 5.15 kilometers worth of racetrack. And you see what Sabo's doing there. He's slowing up a little bit more. He's taking a slightly compromised line on the entry into these corners because he's thinking about the exits. He wants that momentum out of the corners.
And he had the opportunity at the last corner. He just could not find the traction. If he'd have been toe-to-toe on the run into turn number 1, I get the feeling he might have got this one done. He's running out of time, though. He's definitely the quicker of these 2 cars. Simmons now back within 1.5 seconds of these guys. If he can get alongside, Lazarus covers. He touches the paint, though. Sabo touched the paint on the tip in to the right-hander. That might be enough. Corey Lazarus has just parked the bus. I did not know that Porsche manufactured semi-trailers, because right now, Corey Lazarus is going to back this thing in and get it home.
Yeah, he's got the gap now. All he needs to do is just bring it home now. And think about Xavier Simmons as well. You see him in the background there behind Sabo. Maybe Antal's overcooked the tyres with that run at Lazarus, and we could see Simmons try and have a run at a podium here in the final few corners.
Well, the thing is, now he can't make an error. He's not close enough to steal the race victory out of these 2. He can't take second spot, but the worst thing that he can do right now is let Simmons through. If he does that, that is first points and a big blow to Corey Lazarus. Final lap of the race. 3 more corners left to run as they get through the kink down the back straightaway. The wet weather racing, New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League. Hugo Allen's going to take a race win. Corey Lazarus at the moment sits second. Cut your way through the final chicane. Don't get yourself a slowdown penalty, and Hugo Allen takes a race victory. But in the meantime, all of the eyes are on the championship battle. And Lazarus will get it done. And Simmons, what a final lap from him. He needed 1 more lap. He might have been in that battle as well.
Yeah, it was a great drive from Simmons there. He was almost there, and well, you know, he could certainly be a contender in the race to come. Simmons was the fastest car on the last lap, only the third driver to set a time in the 2-minute 9-second bracket. I'm looking forward to seeing what Xavier can do in race 2 from here, but as we have more cars crossing the line, Dan Patrick, I think maybe running out of fuel across the line or serving a slowdown. It's going to give the position there to Corey Croson, and Mandela Pluck will find himself behind Cameron Dance once more. Good fight back from Cameron in the last couple of laps. But Croson, that ultimately was the decider for race 2 pole. Corey Croson finishes in 12th. He'll start at the front.
That's a big opportunity. In a wet weather race, that's a huge, huge opportunity. And could the conditions on the run down at 10-1, you know, Reese, I think we're right on the verge of crossover. We're going to get a short break between these 2 sessions. I have a feeling the track's going to be on the crossover point when we go between the 2 sessions. So it's going to be cold, slick tyres on the run down at turn number 1. Anything can and will happen.
Yeah, indeed. Ooh, this is going to be massive. I mean, as we go through these results, Hugo Allen untouchable up the front, nearly 8 seconds worth of time there. Sabo, he had a red-hot go, couldn't quite get it done for second spot. But there was so much going on in the midfield, and we caught quite a big part of it. Corey Croson getting race 2 pole position in the final few meters of the race there versus Dan Patrick. That's exactly what you want to see. Excitement all the way through the field. But those slick tire runners at the very back, man, they'll be absolutely fuming at their decision.
I mean, if that track had dried 5 laps earlier, they would have looked like geniuses. So
that's the gamble.
Critical last lap time for Stephen McCartan, 2:12.2. So there, it is a lap away from the crossover point. So
yeah.
You're right. I think everyone's going to staple on slicks.
Yeah.
What do you do if you're Sabo? What do you do if you're Corey Lazarus?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you just got to monitor what the other guy's doing and then maybe try the opposite of him. But then do you want to do that? Is that too big of a risk to take? That's the big question.
Yeah. That's the big thing. Oh boy. I like, this is one of those few times where I'm sitting here and I'm going, I want to be here. I don't want to be in the car. I do not want to be in the cockpit right now.
No, certainly not. I'd much rather be in a nice dry commentary box than on a wet track out here. Oh man. Well, we'll wait for Hugo Allen to jump on in so we can have a chat to him after that dominant win in race 1, but for now, just looking forward to race 2, man. It's going to be 23 laps in length. We get plenty more time for the track to dry out, and yeah, I think you're right. There is going to be that crossover point potentially very early in the race. It's going to be a matter of something like 15 seconds or so that you lose throughout a pit stop here. It could decide everything, including the championship.
It absolutely could, and that's the big old fact. Anything can happen. I think what we've just seen, though, is a reasonable period of time skip, and I think the track is now bone dry. So that's going to, unfortunately, rob us to have a look at what the conditions were going to be like. But, yeah, at the moment, I can tell you, we've got our race winner here, and Hugo, a little bit of time management going on in that one. You've managed to take away the race win, but oh boy, that looked like that was it was difficult to manage in the qualifying session. It looked like it was on ice for a couple of laps there with those cold tires trying to battle away with everyone.
Yeah, it's always scarier in a race because the consequences are quite big if you do make a little mistake. It only takes a little lock up to fire off the racetrack. So yeah, it was cool though. I just tried to get my head down, and yeah, unfortunately Antel got a little slowdown there. So yeah, I guess from my side there wasn't really much more I could have done other than just keep driving away. So yeah, I kept looking at my delta, and it kept getting bigger and bigger from the cars behind, and I guess they were having a big battle, which would have made it enjoyable for you boys watching. But yeah, no, it was fun. I like sliding around in the wet. It's good fun.
Tricky conditions now. Obviously, you guys start all the way back in 12th. It looks like the circuit's dried out a lot more, so I think it's going to be a natural progression straight to that slick tyre. Race-wise, obviously, you're going to be giving Sabo just as much space and room to do what he can. What's the talk like at the moment from you guys? Is it still patient? Was there a touch of, changing the mindset and how you approach this feature race now?
Yeah, like I said to Antel that I want to help him win, but at the same time I can't go and take a car out for the sake of it. So I guess for me, like, yeah, if I can help him, then I will. But yeah, I think in that race, they were having a battle, and I was happy to let them sort it out, and I'm sure Antel was as well, to just let them sort it out themselves. I'm sure adding a third car to that mess probably could have made things even worse, and then put Xavier up the front. So yeah, as I say, yeah, I'll help him, but I'll keep doing what I can to score good points.
All right, mate. Thank you for the insight into you guys' mindset. Good luck here in the feature, and enjoy that reverse grid.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
And finally, Reese is going to take a quick chat as away with Corey Lazarus. So that championship standings looks even tighter now.
Yeah, certainly does. Welcome to the commentary box, Corey. And man, things got really intense with Antel there. Just a few laps from the end, but ultimately traction was paramount.
Yeah, that was pretty intense. I had nothing left. My tyres were gone pretty early. I was sliding around pretty early and hadn't done any wet practice in the week leading up to it. So jumping into the practice server tonight was the first time on the wets, and I think it showed.
Yeah, indeed. Well, regardless, you managed to finish ahead of Antal in the race, which certainly narrows things up in terms of the championship. We got a dry race on the cards for race 2, so Antal's going to be mega aggressive there. What's your plan?
Just going to match it. Nothing to lose. Everything to gain. So, been pretty gentlemanly-like for the entire series up to now. It's time to go as hard as we possibly can and try and get a result.
Well, we thank you very much for joining us, Corey, and yeah, congratulations on the podium in race 1, and we'll see how things go in race 2.
Thank you, lads.
Corey Lazarus there, and looks like that's all the drivers we're going to be able to chat to in the lead up to the second race, as we are now in the warm-up. Ewan Baker, the fastest of them all, on a 2:01.7. Before we get into the rest of the action here, one more time, we'll give our big thanks to our main sponsor, Chorus Hyperfibre.
No! Oh, come on! I would have won if it hadn't been for the lag.
Now you'll need a better excuse. Hyper-fast reaction times, hyper-powerful performance, hyper-impressive capacity. Hyperfibre, the ultimate in internet.
Big thanks to Chorus Hyperfibre for lending your support to the NZ Esports Hyperfibre League, the first time this esports tournament has been using iRacing, and we certainly hope that it is not the last. This has been a magnificent competition for us to both enjoy the spectacle, Scott, and the drivers are competing for a lot, aren't they? A total prize pool of 5,000 New Zealand dollars, 1,600 Kiwi bucks to the first overall in the championship, but also trophies. These are fantastic trophies indeed. Playtech, who sponsored the Phillip Island Endurance Round, are behind the production of these trophies. Race M designing them. A beautiful little bit of silverware for the trophy shelf.
Yeah, I mean, look at them, how critical they are. I always say to people, if I'm going to win something, I want to win a trophy. Cash is always nice, cash is always lovely, but it's the trophies that sort of bring the memory. I've got a lot of been lucky enough to earn a lot of sports trophies growing up as a kid, particularly cricket and motorcycling, and they're all displayed with pride of place on the mantelpiece at the moment. And it's one of those things that you look back at. So to not only have trophies on offer here, but to have them be as beautiful as they are as well, that's something that you would look back on for years and years to come. Just been doing a little bit of research as well, whilst we've been looking into this one. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an insight to how the points are actually going to go for the rest of tonight. Race winners with 26 points, seconds 25th, 24th, etc. So 1 point per spot. So heading into tonight, the points margin was 149 points, plays 147. This is what the live championship point standings now look like. Antal Sabo leads by a single point. Now, let's step back and walk you through the last couple of weeks. Well, Sabo won race number 2 of the first round, right? So he picked up a race win there. Also picked up a race win in both of the races at Hungaroring. Didn't win last week. That went the way of Corey Lazarus. But the problem being, Lazarus is not going to... He needed to win both races tonight if the championship ended in a tie to go level, and then it'll go back to the next second places. So Lazarus must outscore Sabo by 2 spots. On countbacks, Sabo will win the championship if they finish in a tie. Must beat him in points. A tie goes the way of Sabo.
Yeah, so that just shows you what kind of pressure Corey Lazarus is under here. He has to hope that he brings it home and Sabo has some kind of issue further down the line. It's also looking pretty close further down in the standings. The likes of Dan Patrick, Rob Henry, Luke Bradley, Connor Brody and Tyler Williams, they're only separated by a few points each, and we've seen how active the midfield is in this championship, so there's going to be some big changes to come there.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot on offer. That's the big key, isn't it? That's, even at the back end of the championship, something to play for in the final few spots as well. So, ladies and gents, that's how it's looking at the moment. We are going to be going to our final race of the championship here in about 45 seconds or so. We're going to get into everything going on. I think the biggest opportunity right now has got to be how quickly you cut your way through the pack. We know those front 3 are going to be incredibly quick here, Reese. Do you think that Lazarus has got an opportunity to just put enough points? You reckon he can get a good start, get down the inside, cut his way through the pack and put enough of a margin there? Or you just think that there's enough time on the board, Sabo's quick enough, you'll get the job done?
Yeah, I mean, there is a possibility, isn't there? But I think what we have seen from Antal Sabo is he is aggressive in all the right places on the first lap. Pretty much every single time we've seen a reverse grid race, Sabo starting up near the back of the top 12, he's been able to gain at least like 3, 4, maybe even 5 positions on the opening lap before they've even gotten all the way around the circuit. So I think what Lazarus will be hoping is there's a metaphorical brick wall that gets in Sabo's way and somehow allows him through, much like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote.
Did you just make an Acme Racing reference?
Oh dear. Just a little bit. But we're going to jump on into race 2 now. And we'll find ourselves with a magnificent grid here for the final race of the season, Scott.
That's it. Corey Crowson gets the final pole position of the season, courtesy of finishing 12th from the previous race. Nico Cordier will be on the front row. These guys will have no one ahead of them on the run to turn number 1. Rob Henry from Luke Bradley is going to make up row number 2. Daniel Patterson and Russell Pepperell are going to be on row number 3. Row number 4, Dylan Jordan and Ewan Baker. Can either of these guys advance their way through the championship standings? Xavier Sivens before Antal Sabo out of P10 on this grid. Corey Lazarus is going to be 1 row further behind alongside of Sabo's teammate Hugo Allen. And from there, we get outside the top 12 race.
Indeed we do. Hugo Allen going to start ahead of Dan Patrick and Cameron Dance here, 13th and 14th on the grid. Mandela Pluck and James Jordan just behind them. Remember, Jordan was trying his best to get into that top 12 early on. Hayden Kirk and Dan Turner rounding out our top 18 positions, and then we round out our top 20 with Brendan Partridge and Stefan McCartan. He'll be wanting to redeem himself for that blunder in race 1. Sam Sproul and Tyler Williams, 21st and 22nd, with Connor Brody and Billy Rowley rounding out our top 12 rows, and Taylor Mitchell all on his lonesome there in 25th position, our sole retirement from race 1. Let's hope for a clean one here, guys, and bring this championship to the exciting close we expect.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. There is a lot on offer here. 30 seconds before we get ourselves underway with the grand finale. 1 point separates our front 2 in the championship standings. Who is going to take it out? Is it going to be Lazarus? Is it going to be Sabo in the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League? Who is going to be our national champion? Who is going to walk away with their lion's share of everything that's available to them? And in the final few moments before we jump to a start, who is going to get that all-important launch on the way down to turn number 1? And I see what you've just seen. I don't see Lazarus on the grid. I think there's been an issue for Corey Lazarus. They get underway on the run down to turn number 1. Where is Lazarus? Is the championship going to be decided on the run down to turn number 1? Who's going to get through? They're 4 wide in the middle of the pack. Sabo's grabbed a whole bunch of spots. And I think we just might have lost Corey Lazarus, and that just might be it. Oh no, Sabo just had a huge hit!
Oh yeah, big hit there as Sabo tries to work his way through. Lazarus has started from the pits, but he's already spun at turn 1.
No, Corey Lazarus! No! Oh, he's got to start from the back. He's 20 feet. He's still in the race. That's the big key. Someone's gone around at the back end.
Brody.
I think it might be... Yeah, Connor Brody's gone around. His race has just not gone the way that he wants. I think that's it. I just don't see things going Corey Lazarus' way. He is going to rely on a ton of luck right now, and that'll be the words to Antel Sabo.
Yeah, potentially. Oh man, what a disaster for Corey Lazarus. Though that wasn't what I was saying oh no to. It was actually the jump start from Nico Cordier at the front of the grid. And oh dear, we've just seen some more spinners at the southern hairpin. Brendan Partridge and Daniel Patterson have both gone around. It's been a chaotic start to this race.
It has been utter drama, and now Russell Pepperell is going to have a crack at Luke Bradley as they run down into middle sector of the lap. Sabo's managed to pick off a whole bunch of spots, so he is already up to 4th spot at the moment. He is cutting his way through. Somebody just threw the switch to the Hyperfibre. I tell you what, as he cuts his way through, now he's going to get underneath Russell Pepperell as they run down through into the chicane at the moment. Corey Croson is going to lead the way into the chicane for the first lap here tonight in the feature. Sabo manages to cut his way through, gets through there, but Russell Pepperell held him off. Great defensive work.
Yeah, great defensive work indeed. A bit of an update on Lazarus. We're hearing that he might have accidentally started on wets and had to jump back into the garage to get the slicks on. So if that is indeed the case, man, that has got to sting for Corey. He's still in 24th position as the fight continues here between McCartan and Pluck on the way into turn 1. And we see more from the 37 of Taylor Mitchell, who's made up a ton of positions here in the opening laps, as there's a spin there for Brendan Partridge. Daniel Patterson's gone around. Looks like Xavier Simmons also losing positions. Man, it seems like this is the race that no one wants to win.
Yeah, everyone just seems to be falling off the road. I mean, changeable conditions, that's one drama, unfortunately. I'm just going to jump back through. I'm trying to pick up when Lazarus was last on the grid what the tyre compounds were, so I might be able to resolve that one for us.
All right, well, we'll go to a Hyperfibre instant replay here of what happened to Xavier Simmons. He was all on his own here, and it looks like just locked up on the way into the corner, and then the rear end swung around on him. Cameron Dance almost collecting him there. Fortunately, whoa, goodness, that might have been a bit of a dangerous re-entry there for Xavier Simmons. I think he was lucky that there was all that drama happening just behind him. Otherwise, he would have been T-boned on his way back onto the racetrack.
Yeah, I got an update for you. It was exactly as noted for Corey Lazarus. He was on wets just before we went green, and he realised it in time, but he just did not get that car back on the grid.
That's so disappointing, honestly. Like, we're all hyped up for a massive on-track championship battle between Sabo and Lazarus, but they are separated by a country mile out there. Sabo's up in 4th. Lazarus is making up positions, but he's only just made his way inside the top 20. He's going to have to hope for something worse to happen to Antel Sabo here, who's just made his way up into the top 3. Russell Pepperell letting him go into the chicane.
I think one of the biggest things right now for Russell Pepperell is that Russell Pepperell and Antel Sabo is he's just got to be aware there is no Corey Lazarus anywhere in the same postcode. So just be clean, be concerned. Could you imagine if you picked up a drive-through penalty right now? That would put Lazarus back ahead. So that is still relevant. It's not over. And aggression, I would say one of the most difficult things to do at this point in time is underdrive the car, because you're in a rhythm. You know how to drive this car. You know how to be aggressive. And the problem is if you change it up, you generally pull yourself unstuck.
Yeah, indeed.
Oh, Rob Henry's just
speaking of
around.
getting unstuck, yeah, Rob Henry around at the end of the arena there, just slid off the racing line. Everyone comes on through, and Henry gets back going in 9th. Could be looking at getting passed by Stefan McCartan here, who gets a magnificent exit from the arena section. Cameron Dance has made up some good spots as well, as McCartan tries his best to get past Rob Henry here. McCartan and Taylor Mitchell are the cars with the most positions gained so far. McCartan's up 10. He's going to make it 11 here, as a little bit of contact with Rob Henry on the way out of the corner seals the move.
What a brilliant, run from Stefan McCartan to drive through from the tail end of the field after making the incorrect tyre choice. I messaged him in between races. He said, "Yep, we made a call based upon the track conditions said dry." Or drying. It was slightly damp. He jumped to the grid, they made that commitment, and then the rain's still falling. What's going on? So they just committed to it. So that's why they went with it. Update, there's a car that might need a tow out of the first corner. A safety car's been deployed.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be big here. It's Brendan Partridge, who's on the exit of the arena right now at a standstill. I don't know exactly what's caused the problem for him. Looks like contact. He's spun on the way out of the arena and then gotten collected by Connor Brodie. It looks like the right rear suspension's been destroyed for him. So this is big here. This is a chance for Corey Lazarus to make up further positions, but how much of a benefit is it going to give him? Hyperfibre instant replay coming as quick as Hyperfibre to see what happened here to Brendan Partridge. He gets on the brakes, rear end swings around, and then in comes Connor Brodie, and you'll see it happen here. Whack on the right rear, and that's completely destroyed the drive shaft.
Yeah, and another car I saw in the pit lane, by the way, Nico Cordier, was in the pit lane and having damage repaired. So I think he's just dropped off the lead lap. He's going to try and get back on the little lap. Yeah, we'll see how that one goes. Croson still leads the way, so this is a really, really good opportunity for Croson because it's safety car is sort of just going to isolate the field for another couple laps. He'll get to lead a few more laps.
Yeah, it'll be good for Corey Croson there.
Sabo all the way up to second race is a big problem for him.
Yeah, certainly is. Sabo's been pretty magnificent at making up positions in the opening laps here. So we shall see what he can do off the restart. I would expect him to be mega aggressive. But remember, under a safety car, the tyres cool down a bit, and we know from the previous rounds of the series just how slowly the Porsche Cup tyres come up to temperature. How quickly do they lose temperature is the question. If you're touring around behind the Aston Martin Vantage here at the front of the field, those tyres are going to be stone cold by the time you get going again. While we're on board with Corey Croson, once again, reminder, thanks to the NZ Esports Hyperfibre League, we're offering up a 1-year iRacing membership giveaway. All you got to do is like, follow, subscribe to NZ Sim Racing TV, and like and follow Chorus NZ and NZ Esports. Fill out the entry form and the URL on the screen there. You have until midnight on Sunday, the 13th of October, to get your entries in, and you'll be in the running to get a year of iRacing for free.
Which is that's just a huge prize. For those of you sitting out there and watching, first year of iRacing subscription going on Hyperfibre. And this is about the iRacing platform. It's not just Porsche Cup cars that you see on your screen, GT3, V8 supercars. I think probably there's quite a few underrated cars, including, I don't know if New Zealand guys have ever seen Aussie racing cars, but there's a car that's quite similar to that, which is the Legends Coupe. They are a boatload of fun. No New Zealand tracks on the service at the moment, but we do have Pukekohe Skian to try and resurrect that track post its demise in the real world. Is on its way and being worked on behind the scenes. Don't forget NASCAR racing action, dirt sprint cars, and the colloquially referred to jumpy trucks are a whole bunch of fun as well.
Absolutely, they are. There's a huge range of vehicles you can compete in on iRacing in loads of series, some of which are officially sanctioned by their real-life equivalents. So make sure to get your entries in for that competition and join in on the fun.
I think one of the biggest things is have a look at the Kiwis that have gone on to be very, very successful internationally. Liam Lawson Scott McLaughlin and Shane Van Gisbergen, all big advocates for sim racing. And you can also find yourself in the same lobbies as some of those guys. I was actually pushing Shane Van Gisbergen in a NASCAR the other night, Xfinity Series, which was, and getting to banter away along with him, which was a blast. Who's your favourite hero you've gotten to drive alongside of at any point throughout the sim race?
Well, there was that time that I was racing dirt modifieds and Fernando Alonso was in my session. He ended up crashing out in the feature, and so I can say I beat Fernando Alonso. So I'm gonna wear that on my sleeve.
Yeah, I've got the same story actually, but it's from a different class. The same thing happened when I was prepping for the Daytona 24-hour. I did some practice races, and Alonso crashed out in that one as well. So apparently, it's not that rare an achievement.
Yeah. But you're right, though. The Scotty Mac and SVG in particular, they've been massive iRacers from since around the time that I started on iRacing some, oh goodness, it'd be 13, 14 years ago. They've been here all along, and they've used that and advocated for it as a great stepping stone into real-life racing, an excellent training tool, but also just be able to have fun and compete yourself for fantastic competitions like this one.
I think that's the biggest thing when it, I had the pleasure of, and you had it as well, of commentating on a number of these names, and basically they're just big car nuts. They're just big kids. That they're really, really good at being big kids, unfortunately. Yeah, that's all they're doing. They're just sitting around and having fun. We're going to be going green flag racing, I believe, in a few moments, and the safety car is now back in the pit lane. So, ladies and gentlemen, the final round of the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League about to go back underway. Field in the hands of Corey Croson. When's he going to launch? Straight out of the chicane. Yeah, he's gone. He's gone already. So Sabo is going to try and go in pursuit. Corey Lazarus has got a mountain to climb. But could it be a mountain climbing effort from Corey Lazarus that might give him the chance? He needed a safety car. He's got one, but now he's got a ton of work to do, and Corey Croson is going to try and help him with some draft braking down the front straight away. Now Sabo is going to try and put some temperature into those tyres. The run to turn number 1 at the Nurburgring. The dip through turn 1. Who's going to get the traction? Well, it's still going to be Croson who leads us out of turn 1.
Hugo Allen on a major defence from Dylan Jordan and Ewan Baker. Remember how fast Baker was in the practice and warm-up sessions? Well, he's starting to make up places as well. That's him just getting past Dylan Jordan in the final corner of the arena. Lazarus, meanwhile, has gotten into the top 20, made his way up into 19th, and he's going to get another position here as Mandela Pluck recovers from a spin.
Well, I can tell you right now, Sabo's off the track. Sabo just ran wide. And there's drama at the back end of the field as well. Lazarus still cutting his way through. But Sabo tried to go around the outside of Corey Croson as they come down through turn number 6. And he ran off the track. Couldn't pull the car up on cold tyres. And now he's going to get assaulted by Pepperell. He's going to get there. Hugo Allen sits in 4th. Croson's still got the lead. Runs a touch wide as they get out of the hairpin. But remember what I was saying. Temper that aggression. You've got to be aggressive. Just about gave a touch up now to Corey Croson. This isn't over, Reese. I just wonder, Croson's going to cover him. Croson is absolutely going to get the elbows out. This is not what Sabo wants to see.
Yeah, but the traction around the outside, more speed through the corner, and Sabo's through into the lead. He gets spun! Croson spins him! The championship has come back alive!
I cannot believe that just happened. And now we watch. Now we watch and we wait, and Corey Lazarus goes through. Lazarus is going to lead the championship.
Oh my goodness, how things can change in an instant of a second. Sabo tried to get back on track, but he did it too early and got collected by cars that were still coming through. There's more damage then for the 92. Hyperfibre instant replay, as instant as Hyperfibre internet. Let's see what happened. Croson trying to defend here, but this is something we've seen so many times before. A little bit of contact on the quarter, and off he goes.
He just needed to be, I reckon Lazarus just got the elbows. He just didn't need to be that aggressive.
And that's where things really got bad for Antal Sabo there. Just tried to get on track too early and got, I'd say, elbowed is the word. The front suspension not in any good shape now for the man who was leading the championship by a single point coming into the final race.
Oh, he's going to need another safety car, and I don't think he's going to get it. I don't think he's going to get... Oh, Reese, no.
Man.
No.
Oh, man, we were so disappointed at the start of the race when Lazarus missed the start. We were like, it's over. But it's never over until the checkered flag. We're not even halfway through. We've still got loads of this race to go.
Well, there's every inkling that Lazarus could still get a meet. Anything could still happen. Race isn't over. It is not over until that checkered flag flies. And even sometimes then it's not over.
Yeah, exactly. I'm wondering if the stewards are going to have a hand in that incident for the lead. It's just something that I've seen happen so many times in Porsche Cup racing. When you're on the outside and you turn in on a car, if you hit their rear quarter, they get spun around. And, that's happened between Sabo and Lazarus back at Hockenheim. So, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah. Oh, God. I'm trying to get my thoughts in order. The face of the race has changed in every single way now.
It has. But I said to you, what did I say at the start of this session? As soon as Lazarus was out, what does he need to do? He just needs to be calm. You've got to go for gaps, and I think he absolutely needed to cut his way through. But with Croson, he needed to take a breath and go, do I need to fight this hard for it? And the answer was no. Why did he track out? Why did he sort of come back across of Croson is... What's the risk? And it's risk versus reward that has really, really cost Sabo. I think he's the fastest driver. I think he deserves to win the championship. But risk versus reward. Why take risks?
Yeah, that is just it. And to add insult to injury, Corey Lazarus setting the fastest lap of the race so far. He's seen Antal Sabo have his issues, and now he's like, okay, it's on. I need to make my way forward and try and get some margin between us. At the same time, balance. Make sure that you don't take too much risk. Sabo's down in 19th now, chasing down Mandela Pluck, and currently there's a gap of that 5 positions between Lazarus and Sabo. If Antal's damage isn't too bad, I mean, he's still able to hold pace with the drivers around him, might be able to work his way back up to where Lazarus is.
Yeah, and that'll be the big old key, isn't it? So he's just got to... The big thing I'll say to him now is do what you can. And what can he do? And that's... At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So the only thing that he can do is get back out there and try and score as many points as he physically can and leave it all on the track. In the meantime, we're going to have to watch him cut his way back through the field. Sabo is right up and underneath the rear wing of Mandela Pluck, so he's still got a race car to work with as well. There is still pace from the 92 machine, and he's going to try and get past Mandela Pluck. Is he going to pull out? Now he's got to be aggressive. Gets to the inside of Pluck. Pluck is going to fight him the whole way, and it's this corner right here that caused drama. Just a couple laps left to go. Antal Sabo drives it around the outside. But again, now he has to take risks. Now I like seeing Antal Sabo get the elbows out. This could be what fires him up. And if he wins the championship from here, all of a sudden you can say he deserved to be crowned.
Yeah, it would be a champion's drive if he managed to pull that off. Man, there's still cars going off all over the place. That's Hayden Kirk that just spun out of the final chicane there. And man, my heart was in my mouth for a couple of moments when Sabo passed Pluck, because you saw how Mandela was almost losing control of the car. He almost went into Sabo, and that might have been the very end for the championship leader. Now it's up to Cameron Dance here to try and keep Corey Lazarus behind him. Remember, Dance doesn't have a horse in this race. He's been finishing in the midfield for the most part in this series, driving for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport. He's surrounded by blackout OPR cars, and he doesn't owe anything to these guys.
No, he doesn't. In the meantime, Lazarus is going to certainly have a crack at Dance. Covers towards the middle of the road just to see if there's an opening. Is going to find its way into his lap. Doesn't quite make it. Now these drivers, for the first time all night, are getting racing speed, racing laps on the slick tyre. How does the tyre wear go towards the tail end of this race? Because this is quite a loaded circuit. The other side, it's not Phillip Island level, but it is a reasonably loaded circuit here.
Yeah, it certainly is. Speaking of load, there's going to be a lot on Antal Sabo's tyres as he's trying to make his way around Taylor Mitchell, getting some assistance from his MRP Racing teammate Daniel Patterson there backing him up, and here we go indeed. Lazarus is going to have a chance here. Dance tries to get past Sam Sproul. He's going to get up the inside in the right-hander and take the position.
Well, this is nearly what Lazarus doesn't want to see right now. They're going to go toe-to-toe, and Sproul crossed Dance back over, gets back down to the inside. This is going to become a long run down the straight, covers into the inside. Sproul goes for the block. That was narrow. There was next to no room left there. Dance is going to go to the outside, and Lazarus just has to sit here and watch and try and protect his car. Remember what we said a few laps ago. This is not over. Lazarus still has to survive, and Sabo is coming. Sabo's only 2 spots behind him now.
Yeah, Daniel Patterson saw Sabo going for it, coming into the final chicane, and said, all right, mate, you can have it, assisting his teammate to try and get to the championship.
Lazarus.
Oh, no. Lazarus is going to be all the way on the inside of turn 1. Oh, he's going to get it done just about. And he passes Dance. Luke Bradley slowing them all up there. Dance gets up the inside of Lazarus into turn 2.
This is not done. Cameron Dance will try and put the power down at the exit of turn 2, still on the inside. It will become the outside when they get through. Lazarus leans on him. Lazarus leans on him just a little bit. Finally gets the job done. Wiggles and crawls out of the corner. Cameron Dance loses a couple of spots, but this all plays back into Sabo's hands. Lazarus is now being released. What can he do though? Luke Bradley is still in the way. This is not over. Oh, Sproul's been turned. Oh, I thought for a moment he's going to get turned into Lazarus. Oh, my word.
Okay, breathe a sigh of relief for Corey Lazarus if you're following him and backing him for this championship. But, yeah, big shame there for Sam Sproul. He's going to now play rear gunner for Lazarus as Antal Sabo is about to come up on him. My goodness, this race has had everything so far, and we're still not even halfway through.
Did somebody feed these guys spices for lunch? Because I tell you what, the drama that's going on. Was it Fruit Loops for breakfast? Because it's got a Fruit Loops kind of feel to this race. Round the outside, no, for Corey Lazarus, looking to crown himself a New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre champion, gets the job done on Luke Bradley. And that is something he needed to see, and needed to see in a hurry. That gets him some margin. Now Bradley's coming back at him. Does he have a slowdown? Bradley's going to go back around the outside. Lazarus to the inside, late on the anchors. Bradley, can he get the job done? Just pulls it up, doesn't need contact through the chicane, and he will manage to survive and get out the other side. They're still going toe-to-toe race. Oh, what a race. My heart, she cannot take it.
Yeah, Lazarus has a little bit of damage to his front as well, which I think is compromising his straight line speed a little, but we'll have to wait and see on that. He's managed to keep Luke Bradley behind him. Now Xavier Simmons is right in the midst of this fight, and he's on the racing line nice and deep, as is Cameron Dance, but they just avoid going too deep. Now Lazarus, he just needs to be eyes forward. He needs to avoid making mistakes. He's got clear track ahead of him all the way up to Ewan Baker in 8th.
Yeah, if he can survive. Bradley dives it in deep and loses the rear end of the Porsche, so he's going to rotate it and go around, which is going to knock a couple more cars out. Now Lazarus has got to get the foot down and try and run. He is 3.5 seconds back from Ewan Baker, so positions are going to be rather hard to come by. Ewan Baker's had something happen on the start of this lap. He's dropped about 5 seconds back towards these guys, so something's happened to Baker. But this championship, she's not over. And what has Sabo got? Can he keep cutting his way back through the field? He is caught up to this battle pack, by the way. He is just about there.
Yeah, he is. Last lap for Corey Lazarus was a 2:04. Antal Sabo set a 2:08, and he's 6 seconds behind or thereabouts, so still not over. I'm amazed that even with the big hit that Sabo suffered when he tried to recover from his incident, he was still able to extract the pace that he can, but he's gotten a slowdown there. He ran a bit too deep in the Schumacher S. Now the aggression is starting to creep back in, and it's not working for him.
Yeah, well, now he's going to have to try and pull this car back up. 2 seconds now, the margin to Sam Sproul, so he's now got to start pushing on. We're not halfway through this race yet, Reese. We aren't halfway through this race. I think that keeps getting discounted just a little bit. It's not a sprint race. This is the feature of the final round of the season. And at the moment, Lazarus leads.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think you could have asked for a better end to the season as a spectator. This has had all sorts of drama all the way through. We'll keep an eye on the lap times here. Sabo, this will be a bad lap for him with that slowdown a bit earlier on, but he's going to get back on the wagon and try to work his way forward again. Both Antal Sabo and Corey Lazarus have clear track ahead of them. Corey Croson, meanwhile, the driver who was involved in the incident that took Sabo out, just went off at turn 1, and he's fallen back behind. And well, we'll have to wait and see what he can do from there, as it looks like a slowdown for Xavier Simmons. He's going to fall behind Croson back into 12th, and Sam Sproul right behind him. All of these drivers have had some kind of issue over the course of this race. Simmons is going to slow down ever more, and Sabo, I think, is going to... Oh, no, not quite. Sabo's not quite close enough to pass.
No, but he is closing now, and he's closing in on these guys at a rapid rate of knots. And the problem being, we talked about it, there's just no further spots really on offer for Corey Lazarus. He is starting to track down Ewan Baker, but it's going to be a couple laps. Ewan is a tricky customer to pass on the best of days. He does his best Corey Lazarus impersonation from from race 1. Just about everywhere he goes. He is one of those tricky customers to try and find the way past. Sabo, though, has a host of customers. Remember, if he finishes on track directly behind Corey Lazarus, he wins the championship. That's his target. That's what he's going to try and do. But Sabo running very, very wide as they cut their way through the chicane. He is pressing on.
Yeah, he is indeed. There's currently 5 cars in between himself and Corey Lazarus. So what Sabo has to do to satisfy the bare minimum of winning the championship is pass 2, maybe 3 of the cars ahead of him. And guess what? All 3 of his nearest competitors are together. Croson, Sproul and Simmons. And it looks like they might be slowing each other up as Ewan Baker continues to plug away there in P7 behind Rob Henry.
Yeah, Sproul just got dived at by Xavier Simmons. This is all setting up really, really nicely. Antal Sabo is going to try and go around the outside of Xavier Simmons at the last corner. He tried to go the long way, didn't quite get the drive. Now he's going to line these guys up. This is really, really important to see. Antal Sabo is going to try and have a crack at Xavier Simmons as they come down the front straight away on the run to turn 1. One more car checked off. He's deep. He's very, very deep. He's dead.
My
That's
God.
it. That's done.
Yeah, he sailed off the circuit. He was too deep. He was too aggressive. He has to do a 3-point turn to get back onto the racetrack, and burning up the tyres in despair. I think it's all over for Antal Sabo unless something happens to Corey Lazarus.
My word.
Oh.
Everyone avoided it, and everyone got out of there safely. There was a call to race controller to have a look at it, but I just sat there and looked at it and went, the guy just missed his braking moment. Yeah, he's a quick driver, but he's got a damaged race car and the car didn't brake. He didn't hit anyone. There's nothing to look at.
Well, we'll see it instantly thanks to Hyperfibre. The run into turn 1 so important here, but as you can see, just got on the brakes a bit too late. The car was unstable when he got on the brakes. That locked up the front right, and he just went sailing off. Kept it out of the barriers, which is important, but ultimately losing out and back down to 19th place.
Yeah, that'll do it. I don't think there's enough time left. He's too far back now.
Yeah. Oh dear. Well, we'll monitor the lap times. We'll monitor Corey Lazarus to see if he runs into any kind of issue. But yeah, as it stands, race finishes now. I got to say, all things said, it's been a magnificent, phenomenal recovery from Corey Lazarus. Remember, he missed the start because he chose the wrong tyres, and he's up in 8th.
Phenomenal drive. And he's not done yet either. Have a look at the next few cars that are on the road in front of him. And again, I'm just going to say it, touch wood, it's not done yet. We're still going to get through another 10 laps of this.
Yeah, a lot can happen in even a single lap around the Nurburgring, but look at Lazarus's pace, 2:161. That is just incredible pace from him at the moment. Considering everything he's been through in this race, he's just put his head down and his eyes forward, and it's paid off for him. My goodness.
You've got to be quick, but you've got to be accurate right now. There's no reason to throw anything out, and there's been some more issues at turn 1. We can still get a safety car. We get a safety car, Sabo's not out of this. Yeah, anything can sort of happen from there. But for the meantime, Lazarus starts to latch on to Ewan Baker. We take a ride on board. with the driver of the 404, Corey Lazarus. Leads the championship for the first time this season. He's won one race. He's been there and abouts. He's never had an opportunity to really put the best foot forward and go out hard and drive away from these guys. Tonight, his best result's going to be a second place, and what a stoush it was from race number 1. And in race number 2, it all unfolded in the wrong way. Started on the wrong tyre, went to the back, drove his way through. He's got damage to the front end of the car. The splitter is not sitting well at the moment. It's not allowing him to be quick in a straight line, and it's not giving him downforce that he needs at the moment, Reese. But he is still cutting his way through the pack. Rob Henry might be his next victim. He's going to try and go around the outside of the run of the chicane. He's not going to get that. And maybe you could be out there and challenging Corey Lazarus with the 1-year iRacing subscription.
Yeah, you certainly could. If you liked that view on board, that could be your view. Remember, URL in our chats, and it was up on screen as well. Just enter the giveaway by liking and following NZ Esports and NZ Sim Racing TV on the socials. And Hyperfibre as well, as Corey Lazarus has really turned on the Hyperfibre in this race. He has been lightning quick, and he makes his way past Rob Henry into the top 7.
And the next thing that we sort of got to keep an eye on is how aggressive does he get with these guys? Because remember, leads the championship, doesn't need a penalty. So I wonder whether or not he's looking down the road and going, where is Sabo? Where is Sabo? Have I still got to keep overtaking cars to go and get him? I hope he knows. I just hope he knows.
Yeah, I'm sure that the Blackout OPR crew will be in communication with each other, and they would have let Lazarus know what happened to Antal. I think now the aim for Lazarus is just to finish as far up as he can, in case something happens to him, in case he has contact or a spin or something like that. The margin is maximized for his error. Hugo Allen, he's out in front again. He's on course to take a double victory at the final round. Russell Pepperell, have to say, magnificent drive from the 750 as well. He's held on to second place in the midst of all the chaos.
I was just about to say, Hugo Allen's driven a brilliant couple of races, and we've barely mentioned him.
Yeah, that's the great irony. You can be one of the most successful drivers in a championship, but if you're finishing far enough ahead and the racing is exciting, the commentators barely talk about you.
Yeah, at the moment he's doing a phenomenal job. I agree, though, from Russell Pepperell's perspective. He's done a brilliant job. He's put the car in all the right spots, been about as aggressive as he needs to be, and sometimes luck goes your way. But you've got to be in the right place at the right time to be able to make the most of that luck, and Pepperell's certainly done that here tonight, and that's the big old key from Russell Pepperell. If he takes the P2 from race number 2, I do wonder whether or not there might be a big old fist pump at the end of the race in that ranking.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that. Oh boy, here comes Antal Sabo to try and make up further positions. He's worked his way up to 16th place. We've lost quite a few cars in this race. Mandela Pluck, Billy Rowley, Nico Cordier and Brendan Partridge. And in the midst of all of this, Sabo making up 3 more positions after his unfortunate lack of braking at the first turn. He's going to try again here to get past Connor Brody, and a little bit of contact in the middle of the corner there from Tyler Williams, just slowed up at the apex. Sabo's going to have to wait a couple more corners to get this move done.
Yeah, he'll try and line it up though, and certainly have a crack. It's only thing that he can do at the moment is drive the wheels off the thing and make some aggressive moves and hope and pray that a safety car comes his way. That's the only thing he can work for at the moment. In the meantime, Connor Brody sits on track ahead of him, holds the spot. But for how much longer can Sabo get that Porsche turn pointed and driven off the corner? Doing all right.
Yeah, I've got to say, with the amount of damage that car has now, it's phenomenal that Antal's been able to extract the pace out of that thing that he has. Lazarus, meanwhile, is continuing to just march his way up the field. He's into 6th now, made his way past Ewan Baker earlier on this lap, I believe, and now chasing down James Jordan for a spot in the top 5. He's going to have a lot of time to make up to McCartan, Jordan and Pepperell, 4th place and the last 2 podium spots, but into the top 5 he will come. Nice and late on the brakes. This is a champion's drive for sure from Lazarus.
Now, he's been clean, and Sabo's just been turned again.
Oh no, yep, yet again. Antal Sabo, he's lost
done.
his rear wing. He is well and truly done now. That's contact with Connor Brody. And, you know, that section of the circuit has not been friendly to Antal Sabo. Brody was on the outside of him on the exit. There was still a tiny bit of overlap, and Antal just wasn't clear and drifted wide into him. Hyperfibre replay here. We'll see how this all went down. If you're a fan of Antal Sabo, my commiserations. This has not been a good race for your man. And there's the contact. He tries to get to the outside line, but Connor Brody is still there.
Yeah, and the big thing from Sabo is he missed the apex. He was wide at the apex there, so didn't get accurately to the apex and drifts a touch wide. Safety car's been deployed.
Yeah, Connor Brody did not move after that incident with Antal Sabo. He stopped, and ultimately, that has called the safety car. Sabo has decided, well, come straight back out on track there, and, well, the safety car might give him a chance.
You can't predict this race.
No, there's been a season's worth of action in just 17 laps.
It's been so clean up until this point. What happened?
Yeah. I mean, you know, we were singing the praises of the entire field at Road America, remember? The racing was intense, but it was clean. And now here at the Nurburgring, everything's just fallen apart.
Even between Sabo and Lazarus in race number 1, they banged panels. They traded paint, but it was right to the limit, and it never really crossed it. And Sabo, the big key from Sabo was that he had a couple of opportunities to turn Lazarus, and he didn't take them. Right? He actually straightened him back out at one point to make sure that he wasn't turned, and they carried on with racing. Right? He yielded the position. So, you know, that's perfect touring car racing. The thing about touring car racing that a lot of people don't get is that sometimes you do have to trade a little bit of paint. You got to take risks with these cars. You got to run people wide, take away their line, but then the goal is that you got to go for the switchback, right? There is a little bit of paint traded in that process. So if you sit here and you look at these cars and you go, well, they can't bang doors, they can't do that, they can't do this. Well, yes, they can. That's touring car racing. I'm sorry, but yeah, best touring car racing tends to walk away with paint being traded.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the nature of the competition, and especially with such a highly competitive field of incredibly fast drivers who all want a piece of that action. You'll expect some paint to be traded, as long as it doesn't cross the line into chaotic demo derby territory. I'm all for it.
Sabo, by the way, could have gone back to the lane to get that wing staple back on. Has continued on without the rear wing.
Yeah.
And that car, just about the rear end came around on the Schumacher S's. So it is certainly not got a lot of rear grip at the moment. So he is taking a lot of risk here, but I think he has to, is the problem.
Yeah, I'm still puzzled because, like, he came into the pits when the safety car was called. He could have gotten that damage repaired, or at least some of it, and he would have been fine. But I suppose then you run the risk with how heavily the car's damaged. He could have been in the pits for something like 5 minutes at least and lost a couple of laps, and then it would truly have been over. I think this is all that Antal Sabo can do to stay in the fight.
Well, here's the thing. He has no meatball flag race, so there's no requirement. There's no timer to say he has to be in the pit lane for this minimum amount of time to get that section of the car repaired. So there's no requirement to have the car repaired to a certain standard here. It's just whatever he can get back out there, which is weird because if you remember the Monster Energy Mustang of Cam Waters at Sandown last year, no rear wing on that car, and then they did give him a mechanical black flag basically, so they came back and put the rear wing on that car. So
yeah, well, it's all up to the iRacing automated stewarding system to call mechanical black flags. That's out of the hands of the live race control that we have in this series, which is mainly for operation of the manual safety car here, which allows us to have a safety car period that's a bit more accurate to real life. Because remember, iRacing largely started out as an oval racing sim. So whenever there's a safety car called, by iRacing, it follows oval racing rules. Pit road is closed, and you have to bring the cars in after a couple of laps under safety car.
He's not
With
gonna come
live
to the
race
lane.
control.
Sabo's not coming in. He's staying
still
out.
not coming in. Yeah, interesting stuff.
I thought for sure he might come in and take about 30 seconds, 45 seconds worth of repairs. Just give him, you're the last car on the chain, right? So you're not going to lose a spot, is the big key. So, could have gotten some damage repaired, but chose not to.
Indeed. As we look at the live standings up in the top right, you see that Lazarus is only 2 points ahead of Hugo Allen at the moment. Allen currently leading, and he's been dominant in this
I
round.
didn't expect.
Yeah, exactly. Sabo falling to third spot. So that means that if something happens to Lazarus on the safety car restart, we could see Hugo Allen taking the title. Anything can happen from this point.
Well, the other side of that coin was, remember how I was saying Corey Lazarus cutting his way through the field? Well, he actually had to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he has had to go out there and win that. Oh, all three of the top three have led the championship in this final round, in the final race.
Yeah. This is crazy. I was not expecting. I mean, I was expecting to be excited at the conclusion, but I wasn't expecting this much to happen in the final race of the series.
It's going to be a 4-lap sprint race.
Yeah.
4 laps.
Oh boy, yeah, and as we've seen, a lot can go wrong in a single lap, let alone 4. So just cross your fingers, hope and pray, turn your horseshoes right side up, and
fun fact: I think in the event of a tie between Hugo Allen and Corey Lazarus, they've both got 1 race win each.
so they'll have to count back a number of seconds.
And I think Lazarus has got more seconds. Well, no, actually, sorry, my apologies. My apologies. I take that back. I wasn't factoring in tonight's races. Hugo will actually have more race wins after race 1 tonight. So he's got more race wins. So a tie will go the way of Hugo Allen. So Lazarus must finish ahead of Allen on points.
Yeah, indeed he must. At the very least, Lazarus currently in 5th there, very close to Hugo Allen, who's led this race the whole way through. And if Lazarus loses something like 2 or 3 positions from here, then Allen will get the championship if he wins.
There's a buffer of 1 spot. 1 spot he can fall back. If he loses 2 spots, I believe Allen leads the championship. So,
Well,
green flags in the air. We are going to
let's
go back to racing. 4 laps left to run. New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League comes down to the final 4 laps. A safety car restart. We've had 2 of them in the final round, in the final race of the championship. And a driver that was all but out of things has the potential to win the championship. Allen has gone clean both races tonight. Leads the second feature race. Russell Pepperell sits on the podium as well. Anything can happen from here. Lazarus is just going to stay clean. And the other thing I just spotted, Reese, he's got teammate Stefan McCartan ahead of him.
Yep, McCartan will certainly be aware of that. He'll know what the situation is and may let Lazarus by, but not too sure on the status of team orders at Blackout One Performance Racing. We'll have to wait and see on that. For now, Hugo Allen has gotten a lovely clean start. Russell Pepperell is sticking with him, but you can see that Allen just has the edge on pace.
Yeah, he does at the moment, so it's trying to get everyone settled and sorted. Who is going to be able to cut their way through the field? Who is going to finish the final round on top? Allen's got the pace. Pepperell's going with them. Dylan Jordan, though, sits on the podium. And Stefan McCartan would love to take a podium to finish this championship as well.
Yeah, he certainly would. McCartan has been one of those drivers that's been there or thereabouts up the top, but he hasn't quite gotten there. There goes Russell Pepperell. Big mistake through the Schumacher S. He's going to let Jordan and McCartan by him just in time for Corey Lazarus to arrive on the scene. Meanwhile, just a few moments ago, Antal Sabo had yet another spin coming down into turn 5 and 6, and so he is way off in 18th spot. I think he's well and truly out of this now.
And now Corey Lazarus is going to have a crack at Russell Pepperell on the run down to the chicane. Does he get the car pulled up? He does. Gets the spot away from Pepperell. Right, now it's a 3-point margin. But Pepperell's got something to say about it as he gets back to the inside. Ewan Baker's back into this dogfight as well. And they will scrap as they go around the final corner. Lazarus is going to try and get the horses to the ground and does so. 3 laps left to run. 3 more laps from the Nurburgring GP circuit. And Lazarus has to cover because he's got damage on the front. There is no speed in the 404.
Yeah, straight line speed not quite to his liking for Corey Lazarus, but he defends the position and he keeps it. He is in... Whoa, McCartan and Jordan going side by side up ahead. This is interesting. McCartan's going to try and go for second here. Can Dylan Jordan hold him off is the question. Oh, they're very close on the way into turn 4. Space is given. Lovely stuff there. Bit of a better exit for Dylan Jordan, but here comes Corey Lazarus. They slowed each other up, and he's catching up to them. He has $1,600 in NZ currency, in prize money, right in his hand at the moment. Just out of his reach. He just needs to survive a couple more laps.
And the number of corners starts to tick down for Corey Lazarus. Hugo Allen is gone. Race win should be just about locked up. It's going to be nice and clean to the end of the race. Will be his only targets. Dylan Jordan still trying to have a go at the rear bumper of Stefan McCartan. Can he hang on to him? Can he hang on to a podium? Is Corey Lazarus able to get through these guys from the rear of the field, from 25th, from pit lane? Could Corey Lazarus climb onto the podium? He'll switch back. He'll have a crack. He'll get to the inside. Pulls the car up nice and accurately, but around the outside, Dylan Jordan hangs onto the spot. Now he'll try for the switchback. Now he'll try and get the power on. Lazarus hangs on to 4th spot at this point in time, but Dylan Jordan is not going to let a podium go begging.
No, certainly not. He wants to hold on to that position, and he knows that Lazarus is a little compromised on acceleration at this point, so he has enough in him to fight back. Lazarus nice and aggressive through the chicane, just a bit too much curb there, arresting his momentum. He's going to go nice and wide in the final corner here. Corey is trying his best to get onto the podium here in the final round and cap off a championship in style. I mean, the events that we've seen here, as Allen will now be the first driver to set a lap time under 2 minutes. He's got this race win pretty much locked up with 2 laps to go. Can Lazarus get onto the podium? Can Dylan Jordan hold him off?
Yeah, Blackout OPR would love to stick 2 cars on the podium and take a championship out in the final round, but a championship is well and truly the main goal for Corey Lazarus at the moment. Dylan Jordan is going to try and hang on to things. Sabo's season was over when that rear wing slid off the car, and now the rear end for Corey Lazarus starts to slide around as they come out of the arena section. We're under 2 laps left to run. We are under 10 kilometers worth of racing action for the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League. And I tell you what, boy, I'd want to be watching this on a Hyperfibre. I'd want to be seeing every single pixel. Such has been the drama of the final round.
Absolutely. Lock up for Dylan Jordan. Lazarus is going to get alongside. Does he have the traction? He does not. Dylan Jordan stays ahead into the Schumacher S. Can he nail the line? Lazarus is climbing all over the curbs here to try and get the best run through these corners. And look at him. He's going to go for it again.
And the cover was made by Dylan Jordan. He made the commitment that he was going to run shallow into the next exchange of corners. Gets the car pulled up nice and accurately. Now he is shallow as they come onto the back straight away. Now the drive from Corey Lazarus. Can he get to the inside? He gets the overlap. Now he will get a little bit of assistance from the side draft. There'll be 1 more lap left to run when they get back to the start-finish line. And Corey Lazarus has driven from 25th to the podium at the moment, but Dylan Jordan has 1 more chance to say no.
Indeed he does. The white flag is out for Hugo Allen, who enjoys a lead of over 4 seconds over Stefan McCartan, who's on his own as well. He's just looking in his mirrors and seeing these guys vanishing in his mirrors. Things are starting to get a little more interesting for Lazarus here. His attempt to get past Jordan has brought Pepperell, Baker and James Jordan right back into the fight. Anything could happen in the final lap.
How good is Porsche Cup racing? How good is the Nurburgring? How good is it when we get a few drops on the windscreen to cap off the final round of the championship. A round in the background, unfortunately for Pepperell. It has been a brilliant drive, bar that one mistake. I was so looking forward to celebrating Pepperell on the podium. That would have been a brilliant way to cap off the championship for him. Can Dylan Jordan do enough to hang on to third spot? Lazarus has the championship in his lap, but he's still got to make it through the final 5 kilometers. He's still got to pull the car up accurately. And the thing is, Reese, if he makes contact on this final lap, the championship could still be decided in the steward's office. It is not done until we cross that line cleanly.
Absolutely. Both of them run cleanly through the final corner, through the final hairpin. And, man, the only chance he's going to have is a run at the chicane, right? He's almost got the championship locked up here. He just needs to survive to the win for the championship. The win for the race is in Hugo Allen's hands, and he's approaching the final few corners now. We keep our eyes on the battle for third, though. Dylan Jordan will nail the acceleration onto the back stretch towards the final chicane. Lazarus might be close enough to make a move, but we'll have to wait and see. Just a few more corners to go now, Scott. We can crown a round winner and a champion.
Yeah, Corey Lazarus knows he backed right off of Dylan Jordan. He is not interested in getting anywhere near that rear bumper. He is not interested in any little stretch of contact out of the final corner. Hugo Allen makes it 2 from 2 in the final round of the championship. But ladies and gentlemen, Stefan McCartan on the podium, Dylan Jordan and your New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League champion, Corey Lazarus, home in 4th spot, will get it done from the pit lane to 4th. It was a champion's drive. He had to get the elbows out. He had to drive his way through the field. He required a little bit of luck, but it came his way. And Antal Sabo, did he have to get aggressive? Will he regret that? And how would you feel in his shoes? How would you feel?
I would feel devastated, honestly, because when he was fighting for the win earlier on in the race, he had the championship in hand. He wouldn't have had to worry all that much about Lazarus. Just wait a couple more corners and get the move done. But ultimately, his car falling apart across the line, finishing in 16th. Still, that takes nothing away from the drives that we've seen from Antal so far this season. He would have been a deserving champion regardless. But Hugo Allen, Stefan McCartan and Dylan Jordan are your final podium of the season. Lazarus is done just enough to take the championship with a brilliant drive. And I reiterate, he got onto the grid on wet tyres, did Lazarus. He had to go back into the pits to change the tyres and missed the start. The fact that he's finished 4th from that is mind-boggling.
Had to be quick, had to be aggressive to get it done, and it mattered. It mattered because he only had 3. If he finished 3 spots further back, Hugo Allen's our champion. Hugo Allen becomes our champion. It's so important to the entire field. The racing, look, that was a little bit chaotic to finish off the season, but they traded paint, they traded panels, they went hard. You can't sit here and say they didn't go car racing, because they absolutely went motor racing.
Oh yeah, they absolutely did, as Antal Sabo draws alongside Corey Lazarus and his teammate Stefan McCartan to congratulate him. Those are your final championship standings. Lazarus wins with Hugo Allen. It seems in 3rd behind Antal Sabo. Maybe just enough points there for Antal, finishing 16th to claim 2nd. So that's going to end things off there with the championship standings going further on down through the field. Mandela Pluck beating Taylor Mitchell by a single point to 12th in the championship. Cameron Dance 11th in the championship. I think an admirable run considering the runs that he's had over the course of this season. But the prizes on hand here. It's $1,600 for Corey Lazarus, $850 for Antal Sabo, and $500 New Zealand dollars for Hugo Allen. Cash payouts down to 10th overall. Cameron Dance just missing out on that.
Yeah, what a phenomenal, what a championship. What a championship race. My word.
Yeah. The conclusion, this was only a 4-week season in the finals. The tournament had been ongoing for a few more weeks before the first round of the finals at Road America. For such a short championship, we've had a whole year's worth of action and a whole year's worth of things to talk about. This has been phenomenal.
Oh, condense that to 4 weeks. My word. My heart. My poor heart. My poor voice.
Yeah.
Oh, what an evening
Tell me
worth of
about it.
racing action. Oh, I'll be talking about
Oh.
this one for a while, Reese.
Oh, we absolutely will. I mean, that's God. I can't say anything that hasn't already been said as the celebrations begin for Corey Lazarus, a well-earned championship, and you know the trophies coming as well, thanks to Playtech. We really appreciate the support from all of the fantastic sponsors that we've seen over the course of this season. But for now, we have our round winner in the commentary box with us for a chat. Hugo Allen's with us now.
Hugo, I mean, race 2 went all your way, but boy, in the end of the day, we really spent the time looking at you. It looked like it was a nice, calm, clean, easy race up front.
It was probably harder than it looked, to be fair, because I think we're all trying to adjust back to, you know, driving in the dry and just using different techniques. But yeah, I got punted off early on in the race. I don't really know what happened there, but got doored off the road, and that was a shame. But yeah, still lucky to not have too much damage. And yeah, it's a shame, of course, what happened to Ansel. I think he's done really well in the championship. Probably deserved it, but you can't take it away from Corey because he's raced really well. Whilst he hasn't always been there in quali for every race, he's just raced really well, and you can't take that away from him.
I think there's a really, really good point in what you just said, and it's the adjustment. You've got to remember that coming out of the heat race, we were doing 2-minute 10 lap times, and we jumped to doing 2-minute 1s, 2-minute 2s, 2 flats effectively, and that's a significant amount of grip across the lap, let alone you're on cold tyres as well. Cold tyres react very differently from the wet to the dry as well. It's not a consistent changeover. The braking points all change massively. The amount of force that you can put through the car changes massively as well. That was actually quite a significant jump.
You're absolutely right, yeah. And in some places you could see a little bit of spray kicking up off the tyres of cars in front as well. So not everywhere was bone dry, which made it tricky. But yeah, I guess that's all part of it. And you know, the guys who do well in those conditions ultimately deserve to do well in the race. So, but yeah, I guess. Ultimately, just a shame that I had that game crash early on in the season, but it is what it is. That's motor racing, and you just gotta push on and maybe get them in the next championship.
Mate, I do want to give the floor to you to say a thank you, and I think you're going to say quite a wide thank you as well. It's not just to the team sponsors; it's to everyone that's sort of a part of the series. I think it's been the benefit of having you around. Congratulations on 4 pole positions. Congratulations on 3 race wins across the championship as well. And is there anyone up and down the field, the series, who would you really like to extend a wider thank you to?
I think look, same guys that I've been thanking. It's you know, I guess mainly the guys that got me into the series. So I actually missed the qualifying for the series, but you know, I was obviously really keen to take part in it. I feel like it would have been a big miss to not be able to compete. And yeah, so massive thanks to Sim Motorsport NZ and Simability and Virtual Motorsport New Zealand. If it wasn't for them, then I wouldn't have even been able to race in the series. So you know, as I say, it's a shame that I didn't get the championship. You know, even if I finished third or fourth, and then race that I disconnect from, probably still would have been about there to win the championship. So it's a shame, but as I say, that's motor racing. And again, a massive thanks to Barry at MRP for helping me out with my gear and whatnot, and also for this upcoming 86 season. So ultimately, the sim for me is to prepare me for the real world stuff and keep me sharp for that. So now I've got the opportunity to get back in a real race car, and yeah, I'd just like to thank Kevets and Kiwi Tarp for giving me that opportunity as well.
Mate, congratulations. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for all the insight as well. Really, really appreciate it across the season, and congratulations on 3rd in the championship as well, Hugo.
Awesome. Thanks very much, guys. You guys do an awesome job.
All right, we're going to take one step down in our podium from the final round here tonight. Stefan McCartan manages to come away with P2 from the final race there, mate. Tyre strategy, tyre selections are going to be the big old question here. It didn't go your way in terms of the heat race here tonight, but drove your way back through the field quite nicely in the feature.
Yeah, no, I probably put too much trust in my overlay saying it was only very lightly wet in the first one, because it was not. But yeah, good recovery in the second. Had a lot of pace here. Really enjoy this track and the setup. And yeah, unfortunately lost another position in the championship tonight. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. It's all part of racing.
In terms of things, how was it crawling around the track on that slick tyre in race number 1?
It wasn't too bad. It was very boaty in the first like 3 or 4 laps, and then it sort of came to it, but didn't dry quick enough. Like I think I got to within a second of the leaders on the last lap, so it kind of needed to almost be at that stage at the start for the dry to be good, and it kind of the track looked dry, but obviously without cars going around kicking up all the spray, it's a bit hard to tell.
In terms of things, a lot of lessons learned across the championship as well. The racing action was phenomenal. Podiums also back all the way back at Road America. What's the lessons that you sort of take away into the future of the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League?
Oh, it's all experience, everyone's still semi-new to the whole rain side of iRacing and learning exactly when you can go to dries and all that sort of things, because each car that's rain enabled does it differently. I definitely think GD3s with the more downforce, they dry the track quicker, so therefore you can go on slicks earlier, and just needing to be a bit more consistent. I think it's what cost me at Phillip Island, a little bit of damage, and sort of lost that. Once I was out of the tow, just sort of lost the consistency. So if I can improve my consistency, that sort of few tenths a lap every lap, I think that's what would have got me near Corey and the guys up the front overall.
All right, mate. Well, congratulations on the series at large, and who would you like to give a thank you to at the tail end here?
Yeah, thanks to Supercars New Zealand for selecting me as one of their 2 representatives, community reps for this, and thank out all their sponsors. Big shout out to Corey Laz for giving me some coaching during this one, and obviously on his podium or win, sorry, and potential win. And obviously thanks to Blackout OPR for their continuous support, Simrigs, and obviously Sim Racing, NZ Sim Racing Collective for putting this whole event on, and Hyperfibre.
Mate, thank you very much for the chat. Thank you for the season, and thanks for joining us once again.
Cheers, guys.
And Reese is going to be sitting by with Antel Sabo on the end of a disappointing feature race after such a strong start of the night.
Yeah, welcome, Antal. Wish we could be talking to you in better circumstances. What was your view of everything that happened to you there?
Quite a nightmare race, to be honest. Just trying to process everything that happened. It was a pretty good start. I was quite enjoying battling up the grid from where we started. Had that safety car restart, was finding a little bit hard. I think I made a mistake I forget which corner it was exactly, forgive me, but yeah, I made a mistake. I went wide, and then I had the position behind the other one I was fighting close up, and I think we tangled. I haven't had a chance to look at the incident still, exactly who was at fault or if. And yeah, honestly, I need to have a bit of a report myself on everything that happened. It was a bit of a nightmare race from there on. The rear never really came back to me, and trying to fight everyone else that I could. It just I could never quite keep up with what the car was trying to tell me. The whole rest of the race. The rest of the race was totally on me. I believe that for sure. Could have done a bit better, but hey, one of those nights, unfortunately. What can I say?
Yeah, shame that it had to be the final race of the season, but still takes nothing away from your overall season. You were one of the fastest out there, and it was a pleasure to watch your aggression all the way through the season. I suppose there's a lot of good things to take away from the NZ Esports Hyperfibre League, and things you can take forward to future competitions.
I've absolutely loved racing this series all year long. Hyperfibre, MRP, all the guys up putting this together. I really appreciate it. All the effort that you guys do. It's been a really fun series to race. racing Corey and Hugo all season long has been immensely fun, and I think we all pushed each other really hard to get all these to make all these moves and maybe put on a really good show for everyone. So I think I've just personally had a lot of fun doing that. And having a few ups and unfortunately downs at the end, but unfortunately that's how motorsport goes sometimes. It can swing in a not nice way for you sometimes, like it did for us tonight. But we'll bounce back in the future. We'll keep going, keep pushing. Next competitions to come, and I want to congratulate Corey on his championship win. I believe he's got that. It's preliminary at the moment, but I believe he's got that. So really, really good job to Corey all season long. He's done really well.
Yeah, brilliant words there from Antal Sabo. Thank you very much for joining us, mate. Championship top 3 in the end. Still a fantastic season from you. Hope to chat to you soon.
Cheers, team. Thank you very much. Thanks all.
Antal Sabo there, crossing the line in 16th in the final round of the season. Finally, Scott, we can bring in our NZ Esports Hyperfibre League champion. You want to talk about Hyperfibre fast. Corey Lazarus certainly turned it on in the final race.
Hey, Corey. Such a strong race, number one, and the battle with Antal Sabo out on track is just next level. You know, tires had just sort of gone off a little bit for you at the tail end of that race, but then to start the feature, and the way we talk about it's box checking, and you failed to check that first box of making sure that you're on the right tire, but you just pinned the ears back, you put the head down, and drove through the field. How were the nerves on that one? Because we saw the spin, that one didn't go unnoticed, and I get the feeling from that point on, you would have been just a bucket of nerves.
Oh, guys, I can't believe how that panned out. I was in my mind, I was just saying it's over, and I was talking to the guys in our group chat, just saying it's over. I can't believe it. You know, my head was down in my hands, and then spinning out of the pits. My mind wasn't on the game then, and I honestly thought it was done.
But you had to rally, you had to recover. I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit of luck. That luck came in the way of the form of a safety car and a little bit of unluckiness on the side of Antal, but you still had to go and drive your way back through the field. To go from the pit lane to fourth was just a massive drive. We saw, obviously, that on that last lap, you just went, look, the risk isn't worth it. I want to win a championship, not a final podium. And you finally made that decision on the final lap.
Yeah, pretty late too on the final lap. I sort of wanted a podium, but I guess sense prevailed on that last lap. I'm speechless when the boys in the chat said that Antal had gone off, and then I saw him falling down the order and past him. It was like, is this actually happening? I couldn't quite believe it, and I got really lucky with that safety car. Both safety cars, I guess, which sort of killed a bit more time, a couple of laps at the end. I just sort of I wasn't sure of the points difference between myself and Hugo when he was up the top and I was way down. So the guys come on my radio, just said just stay calm and just keep your head down and try and work your way back through the field.
To recover and drive your way back through the field takes a huge mental load and whatnot as well, mate. But I think you're going to say it best. I think there's probably a fair few thank yous because mentally you sounded pretty destroyed, and there's probably a number of guys that you'd really like to give a thank you for rebuilding you and putting it all back together.
Yeah, I do have a few. Thanks to the NZ Esports Federation for putting it all on to start with. We've got a group of sponsors. Blackout Electrical Solutions and Sim Rigs, Palmerston Bakery, Distraction Sim Supply from Melbourne, Shunt Scenery, DSM Painting and Decorating. I need to say thanks to VRA, of course, for them choosing myself as a representative to start the season. Such a great bunch of guys to drive with, and VRA is terrific for anyone that wants to join in. Yourselves, the broadcast team, sensational as always. It's great to watch. And just a couple more. I got a little bit of coaching during this season because I just knew coming up against Antal and Hugo it's going to be tough. So Jamie Fluke from Apex Race Team, Kane Halliburton from Suelo Media Academy, and Jordan Cariso from Coanda VRS all spent time with myself to try and find some pace and get a little bit better. And finally, just the Bopar team, Shep, the calming influence through the early rounds, being my spotter was just tremendous. Sam Connor and Steph for putting in the time to practice with me and, you know, taking the time out to work together. And finally, my wife and my little girl, Chloe. Love you guys.
Congratulations, mate. And I get the feeling you would have preferred if Shep was still online for you this afternoon. We did see a message from him pop through on the socials to say, hey, he's supporting you from Bathurst. Hope Corey Lazarus wins that championship. But I get the feeling it would have been much, much better to have him on Discord.
For sure, mate. He's one of a kind. His obviously his real world car knowledge transfers into the sim, but he's also just got this super calming influence when he's talking to you. You know, keeping you cool. Yeah, he's been amazing. I can't thank Shep enough. It's very, very much appreciated.
Mate, congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, Corey Lazarus, your New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League champion for 2024. Congratulations, Corey.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to bring us to a close for the season of the New Zealand Esports Hyperfibre League. We do want to say a big shout out to our sponsors. On behalf of Melon Racing Products, on behalf of Playtech, and on behalf of Chorus Hyperfibre, we cannot make all the pictures that are coming your way, let alone the league, and for all the admin and staff behind the scenes. None of that is possible without the generous support of everyone that gets behind us. On behalf of New Zealand Esports Leagues as well, again, it takes a wealth of people, Reese, to run an event like this. You need the experience, you need the right people in all the right places, and I think the proof is in the pudding. It's been a phenomenal season.
Yeah, it certainly has. And just like you, I'm honoured to have been asked to call the action throughout the 4 rounds of these finals. A big thanks to everyone involved for putting all of this on. It's been just a magnificent series, run beautifully, fantastic racing, super fast drivers, great action as well. It's everything that you want from a sim racing competition. What a way to have iRacing enter the NZ Esports Hyperfibre League annals.
Oh, how about that final round? There is one I did actually forget. I do want to say a shout out to Speed Nation, who have also been the other major sponsor that we've had on board. $5,000 in terms of total prize pool for across the series. Phenomenal trophies, which you saw a few images of throughout the broadcast this evening. And don't forget, there was also round by round prizes for the viewers along in chat. Remember, you can still win yourself a year's worth of iRacing membership on behalf of Chorus Hyperfibre, the internet brand that is bringing you the best in terms of New Zealand internet and speed. You can be as fast out on track as they are bringing all the track action to you in your own home. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure to call the series right the way through. Who will be the next New Zealand Esports League champion? Could it be you? Well, you'll have to sign up and keep your eyes on social media. Until then, on behalf of all the administration, the sponsors, the team that bring you the racing action, Corey Lazarus is your champion in the most drama-filled final round. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you all next time when we go racing somewhere else.